Welcome back to Infinite Novel Audiobooks. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share. Chapter 1. Starting off as a land immortal. Jiang Province, China, inside a villa. Pain, too painful. Qin Yi held his head with both hands. A violent, stinging pain erupted from the depths of his mind, as if someone were stirring his brains with steel needles. Qin Yi opened his eyes abruptly. What met his gaze was a sandalwood bed canopy carved with dragons and phoenixes, and the air was filled with an elegant sandalwood fragrance. I've transmigrated. He raised his hand subconsciously, but what he saw was a fair, slender, and well-defined hand. The next moment, a massive flood of memories surged into his mind like a bursting dam. 2 lifetimes of memories awakened simultaneously. In his previous life, he was Qin Yi, a 35-year-old corporate slave who died from overwork. After working overtime until 3:00 a.m., he felt a sharp pain in his heart, and he was gone. In this life, he was still Qin Yi, but the difference was that he was the eldest grandson of the Qin family, a top-tier family in China. He was 18, a peak great-grandmaster, and hailed as the #1 person of the Qin family in a century. His father, Qin Zhang, 45 years old, was the top leader of Jiang Province, a true high-ranking official, and a shoo-in candidate for the next core circle. His mother, Su Qinglin, 44 years old, was the chairwoman of the Su Group, controlling a business empire spanning energy, finance, and high-tech, with personal assets valued in the trillions. His grandfather, head of state Qin Zhan, 72 years old, was a living legend in the ancient martial arts world, at the peak of the heaven-human realm. 30 years ago, he single-handedly suppressed the entire ancient martial arts world, and he was also a great general who protected the nation, a true pillar of the country. His grandmother, Yun Shu, 70 years old, was also at the peak of the heaven-human realm, hailing from the hidden ancient martial arts family, the Yun family. She was the current head of the Yun family and was known as one of the twin jades of ancient martial arts, along with his grandfather when they were young. And he himself, Qin Yi, the eldest grandson of the Qin family, 18 years old, at the peak of the great grandmaster realm, just one step away from stepping into the heaven-human realm. In this world, the ancient martial arts realms were divided into acquired, innate, master, great grandmaster, heaven-human realm, land immortal. For Qin Yi to step into the peak of the great grandmaster realm at only 18, such talent was, if not unprecedented, then certainly peerless. Detected that the host has awakened memories of a previous life. The do whatever you want system is officially activated. Host Qin Yi. Age, 18. Height, 185 cm. Weight, 85 kg. Appearance, 99, only slightly inferior to the reader. Realm, peak great grandmaster. Fate, extraordinary destiny, peerless talent. System function. This system is dedicated to helping the host do whatever they want, whenever they want. Initial activation reward, 1 novice gift pack. Friendly reminder, there are many children of destiny in this world. They are favored by heaven and are the protagonists of their own stories. However, since the host can do whatever they want, they are not affected by any destiny. This includes people close to the host. Qin Yi looked at the scenes in his memories and finally regained his composure. Staring at the blue screen that only he could see, he said, "System, open the novice gift pack." Ding, the novice gift pack has been opened. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining the Eye of Destiny. Can view others' destiny levels, and a cultivation card for the peak of the land immortal realm. Destiny levels are divided into yellow, profound, earth, heaven, and divine. Holy crap, peak land immortal. Qin Yi couldn't help but be shocked. The system was actually this generous. The novice gift pack actually contained a cultivation upgrade card for the peak of the land immortal realm. One had to know that in this current era, land immortals had become legends, and the heaven-human realm already stood at the pinnacle of the world's combat power. Now Kinyi had obtained a cultivation upgrade card for the land immortal realm. He had already surpassed everyone in the world and was a walking natural disaster. He could say, "I don't eat beef." Without any hesitation, Kinyi spoke immediately. "System, use the land immortal cultivation card for me." Ding! The land immortal cultivation card has been used for the host. Congratulations to the host for raising your cultivation to the peak of the land immortal realm. A white light poured into Kinya's body, making him feel warm all over and full of power. Kinya's cultivation directly reached the peak of the land immortal realm. Ah, this feeling of being full of power is so comfortable. I feel like my full-strength strike now could be comparable to a nuclear explosion. Kinyi expressed his feelings about his cultivation upgrade. System, Kinyi asked, you said there are many children of destiny in this world. If I didn't have you, would they have any influence on me? Ding, replying to the host, without this system, you wouldn't be able to truly do whatever you want. Although the host has peerless talent, these children of destiny are not to be trifled with. They carry the destiny of heaven, and if they grow up and join forces, they will cause unnecessary trouble for the host. So, even without you, while I wouldn't fear these children of destiny, I wouldn't be able to handle them if they joined forces. Ding, that is correct, host. This world is a comprehensive world of male and female-oriented web novels. Most of the children of destiny inside are those old-fashioned web novel protagonists who are even worse than villains, though there are some normal ones too. With the host's abilities, you will likely indirectly hinder their paths. Therefore, in the future, they will either submit to the host or eliminate the host. But it is not easy to make these children of destiny submit. So, in order for the host to truly be able to do whatever you want, this system has arrived. The host can eliminate these children of destiny before they grow up, or you can let this system use slave seals to forcibly control them. This way, the host won't have so much trouble in the future. Is that so? Kinyi said. Thinking about it, it made sense. If most of this world were these types of protagonists, he would indeed have conflicts with them in the future. After all, these types of children of destiny were extremely selfish, narrow-minded, and vengeful. If anyone dared to provoke them, they would definitely receive their relentless revenge. If he had conflicts with them in the future and didn't take action himself, letting his subordinates go would definitely be affected by their destiny, allowing them to escape and indirectly become stronger. Thinking about it this way, it really was troublesome. Therefore, in order to be carefree and avoid trouble in the future, it was necessary to pay some attention to these children of destiny. However, he was already a land immortal now. What could these future children of destiny use to deal with him? Meanwhile, 300 kilometers west of Jiang province, a majestic mountain stood there. This mountain was called Qingyuan Mountain. Deep in Qingyuan Mountain, next to a dilapidated wooden house, stood an old man and a young man. The old man had the bearing of an immortal, with white whiskers fluttering, wearing a gray-green Taoist robe, and holding a whisk, looking like a high-level master. And the young man was nearly 1.80 meters tall, but his appearance was a bit wretched. Because he had lived in the mountains for many years, his eyes carried the caution and peaking nature of a wild man, and he would stare straight at beautiful women when he saw them. "Hey, old man, why did you call me here?" The young man's attitude was very rude, and he asked the old man loudly. "You brat, you can go down the mountain now." The old man's attitude was much gentler. He was used to the young man's tone and didn't take it to heart. Chapter 2, Expert Descends the Mountain. "What, old man, did I hear that right? You're finally letting me go down the mountain," the young man said excitedly, his face full of smiles. Heaven knows, he had been brought to this God-forsaken mountain since he first gained consciousness at the age of 5, forced to cultivate by the old man before him every single day. Today, he could finally leave. Having grown up, apart from before he was 5, he had never left this mountain. The furthest place he had ever gone was a small village at the foot of the mountain, and he was filled with longing for everything outside. Of course. Aren't you excited? Old man, isn't that a rhetorical question? I can finally go see the world outside. The youth was named Chu Men, and the old man opposite him was the master who had brought him to the mountain and taught him ancient martial arts, known by the Taoist name King Yuanzi. Don't be happy too soon. The world below the mountain isn't as wonderful as you think. Besides, you're an unregistered resident, though I've already asked someone to help you sort out your identity. After you go down the mountain, go find the Lin family in High City. 15 years ago, Master saved the head of the Lin family in High City and arranged a betrothal for you. That young lady of the Lin family is now of marriageable age, possessed of peerless beauty, and most importantly, she is a mysterious yin physique. The old man said earnestly. Chu Men's eyes lit up upon hearing this. Mysterious yin physique. Old man, you aren't lying to me, are you? That's right. A trace of imperceptible calculation flashed in King Yuanzi's eyes. If you can dual cultivate with her, you can borrow the mysterious yin energy to break through the innate realm, enter the great grandmaster realm directly, and who knows, perhaps even reach the great grandmaster realm in the future. Chu Men was overjoyed. Old man, you're so good to me. Qing Yuanzi patted his shoulder earnestly. You brat, you are my only disciple in this life. In the future, my mantle will be passed on to you. After you go down the mountain, train well. When the time is right, I will come down the mountain to find you. Yes. Chu Men didn't even look back, carrying his bundle and heading down the mountain excitedly. After he left, King Yuanzi stood on the mountain peak, stroking his beard and chuckling. Silly boy, take good care of that mysterious yin physique for master. Once you harvest her, the moment your yang energy and her yin energy merge will be the time for you to repay master. That's right, King Yuanzi had an agenda in taking Chu Men as his disciple. His real plan was for Chu Men to harvest Lin Wongking, and then, through a special secret technique, the yang energy and yin energy would converge within his body to form a special yin-yang chaos energy. At that point, he would kill Chu Men, seize his power, and break through to the heavenly human realm in one fell swoop. Therefore, his kindness to Chu Men was entirely an investment. He had raised Chu Men for 15 years just like raising a pig, waiting for it to get fat before slaughtering it. However, this is all for later in the original plot. Currently, Chu Men was naturally completely unaware, believing that his master was truly good to him. Meanwhile, in the High City Qin family. High City is the provincial capital of Jiang Province and also the ancestral home of the Qin family in China. The Qin family rose step by step from here, eventually becoming the top aristocratic family in China. Young master, Miss Lin Wongking is calling. A middle-aged man in a suit with a straight posture said. I know, Uncle Fu. The person who answered was Qin Yi, and the person who notified him was the butler of the Qin family, Qin Fu. Qin Fu was the absolute confidant of the Qin family, and had even been granted the surname Qin. Not only because he had been by Qin Zheng's side since he was a child, but more importantly, he had saved Qin Zheng's life back then, which had resulted in him sustaining serious injuries, turning him from Qin Zheng's personal bodyguard into the current butler. Also because he was 5 years older than Qin Zheng, Qin Yi respected him very much, so he always called him Uncle Fu. Qin Yi took the phone from Uncle Fu and looked at the screen. On the screen appeared a woman, extremely beautiful, with skin like congealed fat, eyes like autumn water, and a cold temperament. She was a stunning beauty. She was none other than the eldest daughter of the High City Lin family, Lin Wongking. Brother Qin Yi, tomorrow is my birthday banquet. You must come. You can't be like last year. She said to Qin Yi. Her tone seemed particularly dissatisfied that he couldn't attend last year. All right, such an important event as your birthday banquet. I will definitely arrive on time. Qin Yi replied to Lin Wongking very patiently. Then it's a deal. You must come. Lin Wongking repeated it to Qin Yi again. Regarding this, Qin Yi could only smile helplessly. because he was at a critical period of breaking through to the great Grandmaster realm during last year's birthday banquet. He was unable to attend her birthday banquet. After the video call hung up, Qin Yi walked out of the bedroom. He wanted to go to his exclusive martial arts training ground, preparing to test his cultivation as a land immortal. While passing through the corridor, he suddenly heard a crisp bang sound from ahead, immediately followed by a woman's exclamation. Qin Yi did not stop walking, continuing forward. Turning the corner, he saw blue and white porcelain shards scattered all over the floor, and a young woman in a maid outfit was crouching on the ground, picking up the shards in a panic. The woman heard footsteps, looked up, and revealed a face streaked with tears. The maid was named Su Qingyu. Her eyes were red, teardrops hung on her eyelashes, and her finger had been cut by a porcelain shard with blood dripping down. But she didn't have time to bandage it, only looking at Qin Yi in a panic, her voice trembling. "Yo, young master, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I really didn't mean to." Qin Yi stopped and looked down at her. A maid, breaking blue and white porcelain. At this moment, the system prompt sounded. Ding, detected yellow-level daughter of Lux Su Qingyu. Name Su Qingyu. Age, 25. Gender, female. Beauty, 82. Realm, none. Fate, transmigrator, kin family maid, daydreamer, selfish, narcissistic. Seeing Qin Yi staring at her in a daze, Su Qingyu thought Qin Yi was captivated by her beauty and unable to extricate himself. So she secretly rejoiced in her heart. Finally, he finally noticed me. As a transmigrator, I am indeed the legendary fated heroine. In her past life, she loved reading domineering CEO novels since she was a child and firmly believed that she was someone with a heroine halo. Although her original family was difficult, she was extremely confident in herself, believing that one day she would be spotted by a wealthy young master and rise to become a phoenix. Because she got too excited after reading a domineering CEO proposing to a poor heroine and imagined herself in the scene, her heart beat at 500 beats per minute, which was too intense, and she died suddenly. However, she didn't expect that after she died, she actually transmigrated and became a maid newly hired by the Qin family a month ago. Once, by chance, while she was cleaning the courtyard, she saw Qin Yi returning home. With just one glance, she decided that Qin Yi was her fated son of destiny. And she was the one who would marry into the Qin family and become the mistress of the Qin family in the future. The so-called heaven is about to bestow a great responsibility upon a person. She was currently just a maid, but as long as she could arouse Qin Yi's interest in her, combined with her actress-level acting skills, she believed she would definitely be able to firmly occupy Qin Yi's heart. Chapter 3. The female lead sentenced to death. Ding, relevant plot points have been injected into the host's brain. A sequence of plot memories appeared in Qin Yi's mind. After quickly browsing through the plot, a look of understanding flashed across his eyes. So it was a child of destiny from a female-oriented novel. Regarding female-oriented protagonists, Qin Yi's attitude was one of disdain. After all, it was common knowledge how brainless female-oriented protagonists could be. This Su Qingyu thought that by breaking a piece of blue and white porcelain, she could attract his attention, and by putting on such a pitiful expression, she thought he wouldn't have the heart to blame her. Such brainless logic only appears in female-oriented novels. After all, those novels are capable of having a general who has fought his way to the city gates lay down his armor and enter the city just because the emperor apologized. Do you know how much this blue and white porcelain is worth? Seeing Qin Yi regain his focus and ask her back, Su Qingyu hurriedly followed the script she had rehearsed countless times in her mind, feigning panic. Young master, punish me, this vase. I know it's very expensive, I'm just a servant, I can't afford to pay for it. She bit her lip, tears rolling down. Paired with her delicate face, she did indeed look somewhat pitiful. She tilted her head slightly, letting her neck show a graceful curve in the sunlight, while intentionally letting her injured finger tremble slightly. She had studied it. This kind of fragile yet strong appearance was the most capable of touching a man's heart. However, Chin Yi's gaze lingered on her face for less than a second before moving to the vase fragments on the floor. This is a Yuan dynasty blue and white porcelain, Zio he chasing hands in under the moonlight plum vase, he said calmly, his tone devoid of any ripples. Its auction value is around 800 million. What will you use to pay for it? Su Qingyu was shocked yet delighted. 800 million, such a huge number. She hadn't expected the blue and white porcelain she deliberately broke to be worth so much. He would definitely make her pay in another way. That's how it's always written in novels. She hurriedly lowered her head, her voice even more pitiful. Young master, I really can't afford to pay. You can punish me however you want. Chin Yi nodded. Since you accept the punishment, then we shall proceed according to the rules. Su Qingyu's heart rate accelerated. It's coming, it's coming. Is he going to say, then I punish you to pay with yourself? However, Qin Yi had already raised his hand and beckoned to someone not far away. Someone come here. A guard in black appeared instantly. Young master. Take this maid to the housekeeper, Qin Yi said. Investigate how she broke the vase. If it was an unintentional mistake, compensate according to family rules. If it was intentional, he paused, his gaze finally falling on Su Qingyu's face again. This time, Su Qingyu saw that gaze clearly. There was no pity, no interest, only a faint indifference, as if looking at an ant. If it was intentional, then on charges of theft and destruction of property, send her to where she belongs. The expression on Su Qingyu's face froze. What? Where she belongs? The guard had already stepped forward and hauled her up from the ground. Young master, she panicked. I didn't do it on purpose. I really didn't do it on purpose. You can't do this. Qin Yi had already turned around, preparing to leave. Young master, I like you, Su Qingyu suddenly shouted, tears actually falling this time. I've liked you since the first moment I saw you. I did all this just to make you notice me. I have no ill intentions, I just wanted to be closer to you. Qin Yi stopped in his tracks. Su Qingyu was instantly overjoyed, thinking she had finally moved him. Then she heard Qin Yi say, You like me? He turned his head, a trace of indifference on his face. Are you even worthy? Su Qingyu felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Qin Yi couldn't be bothered to look at her again and said to the guard, Take her away and investigate thoroughly. By the way, pull up her employment records. I suspect that for someone like this to enter the Qin family, there must be something fishy going on behind the scenes. Enforce family law on the person who hired her, then expel them from the Qin family. Yes. Su Qingyu was dragged away in utter despair, like a dead dog, still shouting along the way. Young master, you can't treat me like this. I truly like you. That's not how it's written in the novels. The voice gradually faded away. Qin Yi stood in place, looking at the pile of fragments on the ground, frowning slightly. As expected of a female-oriented novel, money here really is just a string of numbers. An 800 million item placed in such a conspicuous spot and used by the protagonist to act, he shook his head. Truly hopelessly stupid. After receiving the order, Uncle Fu immediately began investigating Su Qingyu's background. Upon investigation, they really did find problems. The identification Su Qingyu provided when entering the Qin family was forged. Her real name was Su Qiuhua, her hometown was in a remote rural area, and she had once worked as a maid in another wealthy family, only to be fired for stealing the owner's jewelry. After changing her identity, she used a distant relative's connection to enter the Qin family. As for her other little tricks, over the past month, they were all clearly captured on surveillance, and every single one was intentional. Uncle Fu flipped through the documents and sneered. With just these kinds of tricks, she dares to come to the Qin family to run wild. He picked up the phone and dialed a number. Director Wang, I have a case to trouble you with. Yes, a maid from the Qin family, suspected of forging identity, attempted theft, and intentional destruction of property with a value of 800 million. Send someone to pick her up. That same morning, Su Qingyu was officially arrested by the public security authorities. Due to the massive amount involved, the involvement of a forged identity, and with Uncle Fu's secret hospitality, she was sentenced for multiple crimes and ultimately received the death penalty. The day the verdict came down, Su Qingyu wailed in court, still muttering, "Impossible! I am the female lead. I should be the female lead." Su Qingyu was full of despair. She had been sentenced to death just for breaking a piece of porcelain. As for that distant relative named Wang Jin who brought Su Qingyu to the Qin family, he was dragged to the Qin family's backyard for a public execution, tied to a cross, and sentenced to be whipped 3 times. "Arg, Su Qingyu, you've ruined me. I won't let you off even as a ghost. Ah. As the executioner continuously swung the whip, the tip of the whip created sonic booms, lashing repeatedly onto Wang Jin's back. With just the first strike, Wang Jin's skin was torn open, and he fainted from the pain. However, the executioner didn't care whether he was unconscious or not, and continued to swing the whip twice more. Wang Jin was jolted awake by the pain, and then fainted again. After the whipping ended, Wang Jin was barely breathing. "All right, drag him out. Don't let him die. Give him some money so he can recover a bit, then tell him to get out of High City." Uncle Fu issued the order with authority. "Yes." The guards immediately dragged the person, who had been whipped until his skin was torn open, away. After the small interlude, Qin Yi finally arrived at his exclusive training ground and began to test how strong the combat power of a land immortal was. Chapter 4. The combat power of a land immortal. Ancient martial arts cultivation is divided into Haoshan realm, tempering the physical body, stimulating human potential to reach a human limit unattainable by ordinary people. After breaking through, one can easily shatter bricks and stones or kill a cow with a single punch. Explosive speed far exceeds the visual limits of ordinary people. Muscle density increases, bones become hard, and one can withstand strikes from clubs, but it is still a mortal body unable to resist cutting from cold weapons or gunfire from thermal weapons. Xianshan realm, drawing qi into the body, opening the Ren and Du meridians, and forming a circulation of the heavenly cycle. The martial artist begins to enter the extraordinary. This is the true watershed between ordinary people and martial artists. One can split boulders with a palm and shatter iron gates with a punch. 100-meter sprint in under 3 seconds, easily dodging the siege of multiple Haoshan martial artists. Can use true qi to protect the body. Ordinary daggers and machetes cannot penetrate the defense, and pistol bullets can be barely resisted outside of effective range. Can also perform basic lightness skill, leaping over eaves and scaling walls. Grandmaster realm, true qi is vigorous and can be released from the body, forming protective qi shields and long-range attack methods. In modern society, this belongs to the first tier of military force below strategic deterrence. Xianshan martial artists continuously compress and purify true qi, circulating it through the meridians in a grand heavenly cycle, eventually forming a vortex core at the Danshan. Physical strength can easily overturn cars. Movement is so fast that afterimages appear. The protective qi shield can withstand submachine gun fire head-on and does not fear shrapnel from ordinary grenades. Can establish a sect, hold down a region, and serve as the ultimate trump card enshrined by a family. Great Grandmaster. The gap between Great Grandmaster and Heaven Man is too large. This realm is a transitional stage of accumulation, a period of gathering strength before the threshold of Heaven Man. Spiritual power begins to awaken, enabling initial resonance with heaven and earth, borrowing a trace of the momentum of heaven and earth to bolster oneself. True qi begins to transform into a higher form of true essence. Perceiving the nature of heaven and earth, tempering spiritual will, and preparing for the final transformation. Can dismantle buildings with bare hands and shatter small structures, combining true qi with the momentum of heaven and earth. One can withstand the direct impact of rockets and anti-materiel sniper rifles. These are the ancestors behind major forces, and only national-level military force is sufficient to deter them. Heaven Man, the level of life undergoes a qualitative leap, completely departing from the category of mortals. Spirit merges with heaven and earth. Every action carries the might of heaven and earth. There is a rumor in the ancient martial arts world that below Heaven Man all are ants. Spirit and body are completely fused, opening up an inner heaven and earth within the body. A single strike can destroy large buildings. Speed breaks the sound barrier, triggering sonic booms. Conventional missiles can no longer pose a fatal threat. Can also walk on air by relying on resonance with the power of heaven and earth. These are the ultimate national strategic weapons and will not easily take action. Land immortal. With every gesture, one can stir up celestial phenomena, with power infinitely close to the legendary immortals and gods. Striking at will, punching force can reach thousands of tons, enough to trigger small earthquakes. Running on land is like shrinking the earth to an inch, far exceeding the speed of sound. The body is almost immortal. The shockwaves and radiation of ordinary nuclear bombs can no longer harm its foundation from a distance. Usually, power is restrained, returning to simplicity, indistinguishable from ordinary martial artists. Once all restrictions are released, invoking the laws of heaven and earth, the destructive power of a full-force strike can cover a city, comparable to a nuclear explosion. Moreover, because it is precise, controllable, and flexible, its strategic deterrence is even greater than that of nuclear weapons. Qin Yi arrived at the training ground specially built by the Qin family, which also had an exclusive testing area. He called over a death servant to help him test. The entire training ground cost hundreds of billions to build, and the main structure was cast from 120 layers of superalloy and composite ceramics, sufficient to withstand the impact of a megaton-level nuclear explosion. At this moment, Qin Yi stood in the center of the testing area. He was wearing an ordinary black suit, and beneath his feet was a circular field with a diameter of 300 meters, the ground paved with ultra-high-strength alloy over 5 meters thick. In the surrounding monitoring room, the death servant adjusted the equipment. "Young master, the test begins." The voice came over the broadcast. Qin Yi nodded. "First strength test, basic punching power." He walked to a hydraulic dynamometer. This machine was specially made and could withstand a maximum peak of 10,000 tons. Qin Yi did not gather strength, nor did he even strike any pose. He just casually raised his right arm, clenched his fist, and then pushed a punch forward. The moment his fist touched the force measuring plate, the entire testing ground trembled violently. In the monitoring room, the numbers on the instrument jumped wildly, eventually settling on 27, 23 tons. The death servant fell silent. This was just a casual punch. It did not invoke any power of heaven and earth. It was merely a strike of pure physical strength. And for a conventional, tactical nuclear bomb, the peak pressure at its explosion center is nothing more than this. Second strength test, blessing of the power of heaven and earth. Qin Yi stepped back 3 paces and took a deep breath. On his right arm, a layer of faint golden light vaguely emerged. This time, he slightly lowered his shoulders and assumed a standard punching posture. Boom! The dynamometer emitted a teeth-gritting sound of metal tearing. The numbers on the screen jumped wildly. 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. In the end, the instrument exploded. The data froze on the frame, transmitted back at the last moment. Instantaneous peak in the core area. Far exceeding 10,000 tons, instrument destroyed. Qin Yi looked at his fist, then at the smoking wreckage of the dynamometer in front of him. "I didn't expect the power to be this great." The death servant's slightly trembling voice came over the broadcast. "Young master, we have spares. Next, we will conduct the speed test." Speed test, basic movement. At the other end of the testing ground, a straight corridor 5 kilometers long was lit up. High-speed cameras were installed every 100 meters on both sides of the corridor, and at the end, was an alloy buffer wall 20 meters thick. Qin walked to the starting line and stretched his ankles. Begin. Without any starting movement, he simply took a step. On the monitoring room screen, the first dot of light flickered. 0.3 seconds, 100 meters passed. The second dot, 0.6 seconds, 200 meters. The third, fourth, fifth. The speed became faster and faster, the dots of light almost forming a single line. Final data. Time to pass 5 kilometers, 2.8 seconds. Maximum instantaneous speed, 3,000 meters second. Approximately equal to 9 times the speed of sound. This was still just pure physical speed. He did not walk on air, he did not fly. He was merely running on the ground, relying on the explosive power of his legs. On the corridor paved with superalloy, a series of deep footprints were left behind. Those were the depressions stomped into the ground every time he exerted force to push off. Speed test, extreme evasion. To test reaction speed and direction-changing ability, a laser net array was activated inside the corridor. Dense red light beams intertwined into a three-dimensional net, where the smallest gaps only allowed one person to pass sideways. Young Master, the limit for this part is 2,000 random transformations per second. Qin smiled. Not enough. He walked into the corridor. The next second, the death servant held his breath. What he saw was not a person performing evasive maneuvers, but a black bolt of lightning, shuttling back and forth in the laser net. Every change of direction was completed in an instant. Every turn was without warning, as if the laws of physics had failed on him. The transformation speed of the laser net was increased from 2,000 times per second to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, until the system overloaded and shut down. When replaying the footage, the death servant discovered that at the highest speed, the time interval for Qin to make continuous changes of direction was 0.0003 seconds. In other words, his nervous system's reaction speed had already reached 100,000 times the human limit. Chapter 5. Discussion in the Lin family. This feels good. Is this the power of a land immortal? It's more than 100 times stronger than I was before. Ding! At this moment, the system's cold notification sound rang out. The Daughter of Luck has been executed. Reward obtained, twin hands, one of the 8 extraordinary skills. Reward introduction, twin hands is one of the 8 extraordinary skills from the manga, The Outcast. Its main functions are divided into the red hand, life hand, and the blue hand, soul hand. The red hand can reshape the body, while the blue hand can manipulate the soul. A blue virtual screen appeared in Kinya's field of vision. Twin hands, huh? With this ultimate skill, as long as the person isn't dead, I can bring them back to life. Plus, twin hands has many functions waiting to be developed. Isn't this much better than those miraculous doctor protagonists? Qin was very satisfied with this reward. After testing his combat strength, Qin left the training grounds. High City Bus Station. A dilapidated bus wobbled into the station. The door opened, and Chu-Men jumped down, carrying a tattered cloth bundle on his back. He stood in the station plaza, staring at the high-rise buildings and the bustling traffic before him, his eyes wide with amazement. Goodness, is this the world down the mountain? Master was right. The people down here live like they're in palaces. Just as he was sighing in wonder, his gaze was suddenly drawn to a girl wearing a short skirt. The girl was in her early 20s, quite pretty, and was standing on the side of the road waiting for a car. Chu-Men stared straight at her thighs, his eyes practically popping out, as he muttered to himself. I didn't expect that just some random person I met down the mountain would be better looking than the village belle at the foot of the mountain. Master said that if I see a beautiful woman, I must win her over. Just as he wanted to go up and strike up a conversation, a taxi stopped, and the girl got in and left. Chu-Men swallowed his saliva, thinking, no rush. Master said that the young lady of the Lin family is the real top-tier beauty, I'll go find her first. He pulled a yellowed piece of paper from his bosom, on which an address was written, the Lin family mansion in High City. Time to go find my wife. He grinned, revealing 2 rows of white teeth, and walked toward the bus stop sign. In the Lin family of High City, 4 people were sitting inside the Lin family mansion at this moment. In the main seat sat an old man with completely white hair and beard. He was none other than the current head of the Lin family, Patriarch Lin Zhen. He was over 70, with a gaunt and thin face, prominent cheekbones, and eye sockets slightly sunken from long-term illness. Yet his eyes still hid a sharp glint, though a trace of unconcealable fatigue and pain would occasionally flash across them. He wore a custom-tailored moon-white tang suit with dark patterns made of soft satin. The fabric was loose and comfortable, specially prepared for his long-ailing body. The collar was embroidered with extremely faint ink bamboo patterns. His sleeves were rolled up to his forearms, revealing wrists with distinct joints. His fingertips would occasionally tremble slightly due to the onset of pain. A blackwood cane inlaid with silver wire rested by his hand. Though he rarely actually leaned on it even while plagued by illness, the demeanor of a family head had not diminished in the slightest. On the left side below sat the eldest son of the Lin family, Lin Zhou, the person in charge of the Lin family on the surface. Over 40, he was handsome and refined, already a Xiantian expert. He wore a deep charcoal-colored dark-patterned suit custom-made in Italy, with a silk white shirt underneath. A black gold patterned tie clip was fastened at his collar. His posture was straight and upright, his nose bridge-high and prominent, and his brows and eyes inherited the contours of Patriarch Lin Zhen, revealing sharpness within his gentleness. Beside him sat Madame Lin, Liu Wan, who came from a prestigious Jiangnan family. After marrying into the Lin family, she appeared even more elegant and gentle. She wore a moon-white silk cheongsam, the skirt embroidered with light gold broken-branch magnolias, with delicate silver threads decorating the edges. The hem of the skirt trailed on the floor, outlining her slender figure. Her black hair was coiled into a dignified low bun, pinned with an ice-variety jade ruyi hairpin. Jade earrings of the same color on her earlobes glowed with a moist luster. Her skin was as white as jade, her brows and eyes as soft and graceful as the misty rain of Jiangnan, and her temperament was quiet and dignified. Standing in the hall was the eldest young lady of the Lin family, Lin Wangqing. In one more day, she would turn 18. She was held as the apple of the family's eye. She was born extremely beautiful, possessing that kind of cold, otherworldly, and untainted peerless beauty. Her skin was as white as snow, like congealed fat, glowing with a delicate, jade-like luster under the lights, without a single blemish. Her brows and eyes were like a painting, her eyes as clear as autumn water, her pupils pitch black and gentle, yet they revealed an inherent sense of aloofness. When she lowered her eyes, her eyelashes fluttered lightly like butterfly wings, making her look even more stunning. Her nose was elegant and straight, her lips beautifully shaped and the color of pale cherry blossoms. Her entire face was as exquisite as finely carved jade, yet without a trace of makeup, pure and otherworldly. But at this moment, her face was filled with shock and astonishment. "Grandfather, you aren't mistaken, are you? When did I get engaged, and I don't even know about it myself?" "What?" Even the couple sitting on the side, Lin Zhu and Liu Wan, were stunned. "That's right," Patriarch Lin Zhen spoke, his voice still fairly strong. 15 years ago, when I was out, I was hunted down by someone. An expert saved my life. I asked how I could repay him, and he said that as long as I arranged a betrothal with my granddaughter, it would be enough. In the future, his successor would return to fulfill the marriage contract. At the time, I was eager to repay the favor, so I agreed without hesitation. At the time, Lin Zhu and Liu Wan only knew that Patriarch Lin Zhen had been saved by an expert after encountering danger. But they did not know that a marriage contract had been made. "Grandfather, if you wanted to repay a favor, couldn't you have used another method? Why did you have to do this, just deciding your granddaughter's lifelong matters so casually?" There was much dissatisfaction in Lin Wangqing's tone. "That's right, Dad. At that time, Lin Wonking was so young and didn't understand anything. You didn't even discuss it with us and made the decision on your own. How could you do that? Lin Zhu also chimed in from the side. Everyone knew how much he doted on his daughter. He was afraid she would melt if he held her in his hands. How could he let his daughter marry a man he knew nothing about? Grandfather, and I already have someone I like. How can you make me face him like this? No, this marriage must be called off. Who in the family didn't know that the person she liked was the young master of the Qin family, Qin Ye? Although the Qin family was the biggest in High City, the Lin family was also a top-tier family there. The ancestors of the Lin family were once followers of the ancestors of the Qin family, so the relationship between the two families was very good. Qin Yi was only half a year older than Lin Wonking. The two grew up playing together. They could be said to be childhood sweethearts. Patriarch Lin Zhen frowned at this moment, feeling a bit troubled. On one side was his granddaughter's lifelong happiness, and on the other was the marriage contract he had promised years ago to repay a favor. A trace of regret also arose in his heart. Sigh, he shouldn't have been so anxious to repay the favor back then. Now he had implicated his granddaughter's future. He, Patriarch Lin Zhen, was not a person who broke his word, so for a moment it was difficult for him to make a decision. Forget it, let's observe that expert's disciple first. If he is acceptable, it's not impossible to consider. If his character is poor, even if I have to risk being retaliated against by that expert, I will break off the engagement. Lin Zhu could only make a decisive choice at this moment. He knew that saying this would make his daughter unhappy, but when he thought of Qin Yi, a child he had watched grow up all these years, he felt that Qin Yi's feelings for his daughter were just treating Lin Wonking like a younger sister. Therefore, for the sake of his daughter's feelings, he could only decide this way for now. Lin Zhou's decision made Lin Wonking dissatisfied. Dad, I don't know that person. No matter what kind of person he is, it has nothing to do with me. I must call off this engagement. After saying this, Lin Wonking turned around and left the hall, returning to her bedroom. Seeing her resolute attitude, Lin Zhu was helpless. There was nothing he could do. Previously, he had always obeyed every wish of his precious daughter. However, this matter concerned an agreement with a great grandmaster who was about to break through to the heaven-human realm, so he dared not let his daughter have her way completely. Sigh, if only Qin Yi could like Wonking, that would be great. Even if we had to fall out with that great grandmaster, our Lin family would have nothing to fear. Inside the bedroom, Lin Wonking tossed and turned on her bed. The thought of inexplicably gaining a fiancé caused her immense distress. She couldn't help but think of Qin Yi. Almost everyone around her could see her feelings for Qin Yi over the years. However, although Qin Yi was very good to her, that affection felt more like a brother doting on his younger sister. It had not developed into a romantic relationship. If I tell brother Qin Yi about my engagement, what will he think? Will he keep his distance from me in the future? Will even our current feelings fade? After all, if this continues, I will be a married woman. No, I don't want that. I must call off this engagement. The more Lin Wonking thought about it, the more she broke down, and her determination to call off the engagement only grew stronger. The Lin family mansion was located in the suburbs. Its European-style iron gate was grand and imposing, with the golden-stamped character for Lin embedded on the lintel. On both sides stood two bodyguards dressed in black suits, wearing earpieces. They stood tall with sharp eyes, scanning passers-by with a stern aura. That afternoon, a figure slowly walked up to the main gate, looking completely out of place with the surrounding luxury. The young man was in his early 20s, wearing a faded, pilling gray old t-shirt, loose jeans stained with a bit of dust, and a pair of canvas shoes that were coming unglued. His hair hung loosely, his face had no grooming, and he looked countrified, the spitting image of a bumpkin who had just arrived in the city from the countryside. He glanced up at the imposing gate, and just as he was about to step inside, he was blocked by the two bodyguards. Their thick arms were placed directly in front of him, and their tone was full of disdain and impatience. Stop, do you think you can just barge in anywhere? Get lost. The bodyguard on the left squinted at him, his disgust undisguised. He scanned his sloppy outfit up and down and sneered. A beggar should know his place. This is the Lin family mansion. Is this somewhere you can approach? The bodyguard on the right was even more disdainful and spat on the ground. Are you here to try and scam us for money? Get lost quickly. Don't be an eyesore here. If you annoy us, you'll be in for a rough time. Chu Men raised an eyebrow slightly, his tone flat. I'm here to find my wife. Her name is Lin Wonking. As soon as these words were spoken, the two bodyguards acted as if they had heard the biggest joke in the world, bursting into laughter and swaying back and forth. Ha ha ha, do you know who you're talking about? That is our Lin family's eldest young lady. With your bumpkin look, you dare to try and cling to our eldest young lady. Truly a toad lusting after swan meat, you've got some nerve. Our eldest young lady's status is so noble. Why don't you take a piss and look at your own reflection before spouting such nonsense? The continuous mocking made Chu Men's face darken instantly. He retorted loudly, You gatekeepers, get lost. That is my wife. Do you think I wouldn't know my own wife's name? Let me in now. Are you asking for it? The bodyguard on the left's face sank. Seeing that Chu Men didn't know his place and dared to talk back, he immediately reached out and pushed towards his chest, wanting to shove him away from the gate. You ungrateful wretch. Today I'll let you know that the Lin family's gate isn't something a pauper like you can just touch. His strike was fast and ruthless. He had expected to easily push over this weak-looking bumpkin, but as soon as his palm touched Chu Men's chest, it was like crashing into an indestructible piece of steel. Not only did he fail to move him an inch, but a massive force rebounded, numbing his palm and causing him to stagger back several steps. Huh, seeing this, the other bodyguard's face hardened. He immediately swung his fist towards Chu Men's face. You dare to fight back, you're courting death. Chu Men's eyes were fierce. His figure remained motionless. He merely raised his hand casually, lightly gripped the opponent's wrist, and gave it a forceful twist, snapping the entire arm. Ah! The bodyguard screamed, his arm in unbearable pain, instantly losing all strength. He was forcefully flung by Chu Men, thrown into the air, and then crashed to the ground due to gravity, looking utterly miserable. The bodyguard who had been repelled earlier saw this, shocked and furious. He pulled out a stun baton and rushed forward, but before he could even get close to Chu Men, he was kicked hard in the lower abdomen. Like a kite with a broken string, he flew backward, crashing into the iron gate with a loud clang. The entire gate slightly deformed from the impact. The bodyguard curled up on the ground in pain, immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, and could no longer get up. The commotion was massive and instantly alerted Lin Zhou, who was inside the Lin family courtyard. Not long after, several bodyguards surrounded a middle-aged man dressed in a dark suit with subtle patterns and a handsome face as he walked out. It was none other than the acting head of the Lin family, Lin Zhou. His brows were tightly locked. He looked at the two bodyguards lying on the ground, then at the sloppy youth standing at the gate, and shouted in a deep voice, Presumptuous! Who dares to run wild in the Lin family? A servant who happened to see the whole event quickly bowed and reported, Master, this kid said something about the eldest young lady being his wife, after the gatekeepers stopped him. Lin Zhu looked at Chu Men, his gaze scrutinizing. At first, seeing the person looking so sloppy and countrified, he felt some displeasure, but when he clearly saw Chu Men's features, he was suddenly stunned. He subconsciously took a yellowed old photograph from his pocket. The young man in the photo was exactly the same as the Chu Men before him. It was the photo Elder Lin had given him shortly after Lin Wonking left. He carefully compared the youth in front of him. The contours of his brows and eyes were almost identical. Except for his sloppy clothes, his appearance was exactly the same as the person in the photo. Lin Zhou's expression changed slightly, but his previous authority did not dissipate. He stepped forward, waved his hand to have the surrounding bodyguards send the two unconscious bodyguards for treatment, and then asked Chu Men, Are you Chu Men? That's right, it's me. Who are you? I am the acting head of the Lin family, Lin Zhou. I am already aware that the previous matter was a misunderstanding, but ultimately it was my Lin family that was rude first. Later, I will have the housekeeper properly discipline these servants. You may come in first. Saying this, he had someone push open the gate and let the sloppy youth, who had been blocked outside, into the Lin family mansion. Chapter 7. The birthday banquet begins. After Chu Men entered the door, he was led by Lin Zhu to the Lin family's reception hall. At this moment, Patriarch Lin Zhen, having been informed of Chu Men's arrival by a servant, was waiting there. You are the esteemed disciple of Senior King Yuanzi. Inside the reception hall, Elder Lin asked Chu Men, who was standing there and looking around. Chu Men reacted, cupped his hands, and tried his best to put on a respectful appearance. Junior Chu Men, greetings, Elder Lin. 15 years ago, my master saved your life, and today I have come specifically to pay a visit regarding the arranged marriage made back then. Upon hearing this, Patriarch Lin Zhen did not expect Chu Men to speak so bluntly. He could only nod and instruct the servants to serve tea. He sized up Chu Men. His appearance was decent enough, but his eyes were shifty, staring straight at any pretty maid he saw, which made him feel somewhat uncomfortable. Is Senior King Yuanzi doing well? Patriarch Lin Zhen asked Chu Men again. My master is very well. He told me to come down the mountain to gain experience first, and when the time is right, he will come to visit in person. Chu Men grinned and said, By the way, Elder Lin, where is my wife? I am her fiancé now. Why hasn't she come out to see me? Patriarch Lin Zhen frowned. You mean Lin Wongking? He paused. Lin Wongking is a proud child. Regarding the arranged marriage, she only knows the general idea, and I haven't explained the details to her yet. No worries, no worries. Chu Men waved his hand. Master said that women just need a bit of coaxing. Don't worry, I have plenty of ways. Patriarch Lin Zhen felt a faint sense of unease in his heart, but due to the debt of gratitude for saving his life back then, he couldn't say much and had to arrange for him to stay first. Meanwhile, Lin Wongking also learned that her nominal fiancé had arrived. She was shocked, not expecting him to come so quickly, but she did not go out to show herself. At night, Patriarch Lin Zhen planned to host a banquet to entertain Chu Men, and Lin Wongking finally emerged from her bedroom at this time. From the moment Chu Men saw Lin Wongking, his eyes never left her face and body, and he almost drooled. He had never seen such a beautiful woman. Her skin was as white as the snow on the mountains. Her features were even more beautiful than a fairy in a painting. Her temperament was cold and noble, forming a sharp contrast with his image as a bumpkin from the mountains. The thought arose in his mind. The old man really didn't lie to me. Such a beautiful woman is my wife. Lin Wongking felt completely uncomfortable being stared at, but she still braced herself and asked, Grandfather, is he the disciple of that expert? That's right, he is the disciple of Senior King Yuanzi, named Chu Men. Chu Men said excitedly, You must be my wife, right? You are so beautiful. Shut up, who is your wife? We just met today, don't act so familiar. Besides, I already have someone I like, and I do not acknowledge this so-called marriage contract. Upon hearing Chu Men's address, Lin Wongking immediately gave him a cold look. When Chu Men heard this, the smile on his face froze instantly. The burning heat in his eyes faded away rapidly and was replaced by a cold, sinister look. He had always been fond of beauty, and he was determined to have a stunner like Lin Wongking. He had come down the mountain full of joy to fulfill the appointment, never expecting to be met with Lin Wongking's blatant disdain. Chu Men slowly raised his eyes. There was no rage in his pitch-black pupils, only a bottomless, cold glint, and a faint, cold curve appeared at the corner of his mouth. He didn't speak, but the hatred in his heart grew like wild grass. What a Lin Wongking. So what if you have someone you like? With the marriage contract in place, you are my Chu Men's person. This hidden hatred coiled in his heart like a dormant viper, waiting for the day to strike, to crush this cold and beautiful woman, along with her pride, into pieces. "All right, Wonking, how are you speaking to a guest? Apologize quickly." Patriarch Lin Zhen scolded at this moment, which also interrupted Chu Men's sinister thoughts. Hearing her grandfather's reprimand, Lin Wonking did not intend to tangle with Chu Men, so she reluctantly said sorry and then turned around and left. Patriarch Lin Zhen sighed. "This child has been like this since she was young, very resistant to things she doesn't want to do. Don't take it to heart. Tomorrow is Wonking's birthday banquet. You should come and attend." "No problem." Chu Men instantly recovered his expression and chuckled. "Master said that women will always resist at first, and it will be fine after more contact. Since tomorrow is little sister Wonking's birthday banquet, I will prepare well." The next evening, the street next to the Lin family's estate was already congested with heavy traffic. Today was the 18th birthday of the Lin family's eldest daughter, Lin Wonking, and also her coming-of-age ceremony. As a top-tier noble family in High City, rooted in High City for 100 years with deep foundations, and with Lin Wonking being especially favored by Elder Lin, the scale of this banquet could be imagined. From the main gate to the main building, a red carpet was laid out for 3 miles. The sides were filled with cars. Seeing Rolls-Royces, Bentleys, and Maybachs here was nothing unusual. "Young Master Qin, please this way." Qin Yi arrived at the Lin family as promised. Welcoming him was the Lin family's head butler, an old man with graying hair, who was personally guarding the entrance. This detail was noticed by many guests. The Lin family's head butler personally greeting a guest. Who was it that had arrived? Qin Yi nodded and followed him inside. The main hall of the main building had been converted into a banquet hall, and the space, which could accommodate hundreds of people, was almost full. The chandeliers were custom-made, with 36 crystal lamps hanging from the dome, their light brilliant but not dazzling. A band was playing soothing music in the corner, but almost no one was listening. Everyone was socializing. "President Li, you've come too. I heard you've been negotiating a big project recently." "Don't mention it. That project was snatched by the Wang family. But we aren't talking about business today. Everyone is here to wish Miss Lin a happy birthday." Yes. Today is Miss Lin's birthday banquet. We must give the Lin family face." These CEOs, who usually dominate the business world, were peaceful and low-key at the Lin family residence. In the corner, a few young people gathered together, discussing topics related to Lin Wonking's birthday banquet. The Lin family is truly grand. Half a birthday banquet has brought almost all the powerful figures in High City to attend. That's for sure. With the scale of the Lin family in High City, who dares not give the Lin family face? I just don't know how beautiful the eldest Miss Lin will look today. By the way, do you think young Master Qin will come today? Young Master Qin was absent from last year's birthday banquet. I heard that Miss Lin looked bitter the whole time after finding out. That's not something we should be concerned about. Hey, look, isn't that young Master Qin? He came this time, one person said excitedly. The appearance of Qin Yi instantly became the focus of the entire venue. After all, Qin Yi was the heir of the Qin family. In High City, and even in the whole of China, who didn't know the name of the Qin family? Stomping their feet could cause a tremor in China. Chapter 8. The Madly Jealous Chu Men. Qin Yi wore a black, high-end, custom-made suit today. With no unnecessary decorations, it accentuated his shoulders and back, which were as straight as a pine tree. His cold, handsome face became even more striking in the warm light. His brow bone was sharp, his pupils were as deep as a cold pool, and an aura of untouchable nobility surrounded him. Qin Yi's arrival caused the originally noisy banquet to become briefly quiet, and the gazes of the surrounding guests all converged on him in unison. At this moment, Chairman Zhou of the Global Group was the first to break the silence and stepped forward quickly, his face full of smiles. "Young Master Qin, it is the Lin family's good fortune that you could come. I have long heard that the Qin family has laid out a new plan for the new energy track, and I hope for your guidance in the future, young Master Chin. Chinyi nodded slightly, his voice as faint as the wind. Chairman Zhou is too polite. Immediately after, several distant relatives of the Lin family also crowded up, bowing and scraping as they handed over their business cards. Young Master Chin, I have long admired your name. I am Lin Wongking's distant uncle. I hope for your support in the future, young Master Chin. Chin Yi only nodded faintly, his gaze sweeping over the crowd without saying another word. There was a hint of nonchalance in his composure, yet no one dared to neglect him because of it. In the face of absolute strength, any deliberate flattery seemed insignificant. Just then, light footsteps came from the stairs, breaking the brief stagnation. Lin Wongking walked down slowly. She was wearing a champagne gold fishtail evening gown, with delicate pearls adorned on the thin shoulder straps, and the hem of the skirt swayed lightly with her steps, shimmering with brilliance. Her skin was as white as snow, her makeup was clear and translucent, the corners of her eyes were slightly upturned with a hint of coyness, and the diamond necklace around her neck set off her swan-like neck, making it slender and straight. Her originally cold eyes were now as bright as if they contained starlight, and her gaze crossed the crowd, locking straight onto Kinye, her steps quickening slightly. Brother Kinye. A sweet, soft, and slightly jubilant cry pierced through the clamor of the banquet hall. Lin Wongking ran quickly to Kinye, her cheeks flushed with excitement, and she reached out to gently tug at his sleeve, her fingertips even trembling slightly. You finally came. I thought you weren't going to attend the banquet again because of your cultivation. A faint smile curved at the corners of Kinye's mouth, and he reached out to gently ruffle her hair, his movements natural and intimate. Silly girl, how could I be late for something I promised you? Patriarch Lin Zhen leaned on his cane and walked out from behind the crowd with Lin Zhu and his wife. Seeing the intimate appearance of the two, his face was full of kind smiles. Chinyi, you're looking well. Sit, sit. Knowing you were coming, I specifically asked the chef to make the osmanthus sugar lotus root you loved when you were a child. Sorry to trouble you, Elder Lin. Kinyi nodded slightly and turned to Lin Zhu and Liu Wan. Uncle Lin, Aunt Lin, long time no see. You are looking well. It's good that you came, Kinye. Lin Zhu and his wife both responded with smiles. At this moment, Kinye's gaze inadvertently swept past behind Patriarch Lin Zhen. There stood a tall young man, and it was none other than Chu Men. He had clearly dressed up carefully. Changing from his previous rustic look, he wore a well-tailored white suit, and his face was decent enough, but his brows were knit with an unhidden unease. He was staring at Kinye without blinking, his eyes churning with undisguised jealousy and resentment. This Kinye, one look and you can tell he's a playboy. Besides his family background, what skills does he have? Why is it that Lin Wongking is cold and indifferent to me, but so caring and solicitous to this guy named Kinye? Chu Men was now extremely furious, but on the surface, he still appeared calm and waveless. Chinyi raised an eyebrow slightly and asked in a flat tone, Elder Lin, who is this? A trace of embarrassment flashed across Patriarch Lin Zhen's face, and he coughed lightly to smooth things over. Oh, Kinye, his name is Chu Men. He is the disciple of my lifesaver from back then, and he also came specifically to attend Lin Wongking's birthday banquet today. Patriarch Lin Zhen only briefly introduced Chu Men, and did not mention that Chu Men was Lin Wongking's fiancé. Chu Men took a deep breath, suppressed the surging emotions in his heart, stepped forward and squeezed out a smile. Young Master Chin, my name is Chu Men. Chin Yi nodded faintly, asked no more, and went to the main table with Lin Wongking to take a seat, but Chu Men clenched his fists. After sitting down, Qin Yi thought about the identity of Chu Men, the disciple of his lifesaver. System, check Chu Men's panel. Before long, a blue virtual screen appeared in Qin Yi's field of vision. Ding, Chu Men's panel has finished loading. The system's cold prompt sounded. Name, Chu Men. Gender, male. Age, 21. Appearance, 80. Realm, Xianshan Realm Late Stay. Fate, Xuan-level expert descending the mountain protagonist, selfish, overly confident, lustful. Sure enough, he was a child of destiny. Qin Yi didn't expect to meet a newly descended child of destiny at a birthday banquet. He felt even more comfortable, truly, finding it without looking. It comes without effort. Brother Qin Yi, what are you thinking about? Lin Wongking saw Qin Yi come back to his senses, thinking he was thinking about something important, and waited a while before asking. It's nothing. What could be more important than your birthday banquet, Wongking? Qin Yi's voice was incomparably gentle, and as he spoke, he touched Lin Wongking's head with doting affection. Oh, Brother Qin Yi, you're annoying, really. Being petted on the head by Qin Yi, Lin Wongking's face instantly blushed. Meanwhile, seeing his fiancée looking so shy, Chu Men clenched his fists in anger. Bitch, she is clearly my fiancée. She is already a married woman, yet she is sarcastic to me, but shy and timid with other men. Chu Men thought angrily in his heart. In his opinion, since Elder Lin signed the marriage contract, Lin Wongking must be his woman, and no one could touch her. When he was a child, King Yuanzi told him that he was the child of destiny of this world, and after descending the mountain, he would have everything he wanted. But now, never mind having everything, his own woman was flirting with another man right in front of him. How could he not be angry? However, the current occasion was not suitable for an outburst, so he could only choose to endure it for the time being. HMPH. After the banquet ends, on the way back for that good-for-nothing playboy, I have plenty of ways to kill him. Chu Men thought with a gloomy face. He had no idea what kind of person he was about to provoke. In his eyes, Qin Yi appeared ordinary, with no flow of true energy, just a slightly stronger mortal. As for the Qin family, he had just descended the mountain and only heard a little about it from the guests' discussions just now. With his lack of experience, he had no idea what kind of behemoth the Qin family was. Chapter 9. Protagonist fumbles, villain heals patriarch Lin Zhen. The laughter and chatter in the banquet hall had not yet dissipated, and the celebrities under the crystal lights still held their wine glasses, their gazes lingering intentionally or unintentionally on Qin Yi, who sat at the main table. This heir to the Qin family usually exuded such a majestic and powerful aura that others found him intimidating, yet his gaze was unusually gentle when facing Lin Wongking. At this moment, Lin Wongking sat beside him with curved brows and eyes, leaning in to whisper in his ear from time to time. The young girl's joy and reliance were undisguised, causing those around them to watch with envy. Just then, Elder Lin at the head of the table suddenly let out a muffled groan. His complexion, which had been quite rosy, instantly turned pale as paper. Veins bulged on his forehead. His hands pressed tightly against his chest. His body began to convulse violently. A painful muffled sound escaped his throat, and he slid directly from his chair to the ground. Dad. Grandpa. The couple Lin Zhu and his wife were so frightened that their expressions changed drastically. They hurriedly knelt down to support Patriarch Lin Zhen, their voices trembling. Quick, call a doctor. Where are the medical staff in the banquet hall? The scene was instantly in chaos. Guests exclaimed as they crowded around, and the originally warm birthday banquet was instantly shrouded in panic. Patriarch Lin Zhen curled up on the ground, covered in cold sweat, his features twisted, clearly enduring extreme pain. This was not an ordinary illness, but an old injury left behind from a sneak attack by an enemy years ago, which had damaged his foundation. Over the years, he had visited famous doctors both domestically and abroad, but all were helpless, and he could only rely on medication to suppress it. He had not expected it to erupt suddenly at the birthday banquet today. Grandpa, don't scare me. Lin Wongking cried like rain on pear blossoms, at a loss, her eyes red. Just as everyone was in a panic, a steady voice suddenly rang out. Let me try. I see that Elder Lin's condition is serious. If not treated immediately, there will be a danger to his life. Chu Men stepped quickly out of the crowd, his expression confident, a trace of triumph flashing in his eyes. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Since childhood, he had been a genius in ancient martial arts and medicine, and his medical skills were personally taught by King Yuanzi, especially the 9-turn golden needles, which were claimed to be able to bring the dead back to life and specialize in treating all kinds of difficult and chronic illnesses. To him, Elder Lin's stubborn illness was the best opportunity to show off his skills, conquer the Lin family, and win Lin Wonking's heart. Elder Lin is suffering from an old illness eruption. His internal organs are damaged. Ordinary doctors are useless. Only my acupuncture can save him, Chu Men said loudly, reaching out to support Patriarch Lin Zhen. But as soon as he finished speaking, a chorus of skepticism immediately arose around him. Who are you? A mere greenhorn, daring to claim you can treat Elder Lin's old illness. Exactly. Elder Lin's illness couldn't be cured even after running to top hospitals both domestically and abroad. Why are you, a mere greenhorn, causing trouble? Don't make things worse. Even if you want to show off, you should consider the occasion. The guests looked disdainful. In their eyes, this young man in his early 20s was simply reckless. Even if he knew some amateur martial arts, daring to boast that he could cure Elder Lin's terminal illness was simply overestimating his own capabilities. Chu Men's face darkened, and just as he was about to defend himself, Lin's mother, Liu Wan, grabbed a straw in her panic and looked at Lin Zhou, crying, "Let's treat a dead horse as a living one. Chu Men is a disciple of that expert. Perhaps he really has a way." Lin Zhu gritted his teeth, looked at the suffering Patriarch Lin Zhen, and finally nodded. "Okay, Chu Men, you try. But if you dare to mess around, even if you are that person's disciple, I will not forgive you." Rest assured, Chu Men was overjoyed. He immediately took out a set of glittering golden needles from the cloth bag he carried and said in a deep voice, "My 9-turn golden needles are specialized in treating old hidden injuries. They can relieve Elder Lin's pain in a moment." He held his breath and focused, his fingers gripping the golden needles, precisely piercing several major acupoints on Patriarch Lin Zhen's chest and neck. It must be said that Chu Men's acupuncture technique did indeed have some genuine skill. After a few needles, Patriarch Lin Zhen's convulsing body gradually calmed down. His complexion also regained a trace of blood color. His painful groans weakened significantly, and it looked like he was about to recover. "It's effective. It's really effective." Lin Zhu and his wife were pleasantly surprised. A triumphant smile curled on Chu Men's lips as he looked at Lin Wonking, wanting to receive the girl's admiring gaze, only to find that Lin Wonking's gaze had been fixed on Qin Yi not far away from beginning to end. She had an intuition that Qin Yi definitely had a way to cure her grandfather. As for Qin Yi, he still stood in place, watching Chu Men's acupuncture process with an indifferent expression. He saw clearly that Chu Men's acupuncture could only temporarily suppress it, because his cultivation was not enough to achieve a complete cure. Just as Chu Men picked up the last crucial golden needle, preparing to pierce it into the Beihui acupoint on the top of Patriarch Lin Zhen's head to completely stabilize the condition. Qinya's fingertips moved imperceptibly, and a wisp of invisible true energy was flicked out silently, without anyone noticing. Chu Men only felt his wrist suddenly go numb, as if bitten by a mosquito, and his fingers uncontrollably deviated by half an inch. The golden needle swerved fiercely, piercing the edge of a lethal acupoint next to the Fengfu acupoint. Arg! Patriarch Lin Zhen, who had just calmed down, instantly let out a heart-wrenching scream. His body arched violently. He spat out black blood. His face turned even paler than before. His breath instantly weakened to the extreme, and it looked like he was about to stop breathing. "Grandpa. Dad." The Lin family members completely collapsed, and Lin Wonking burst into tears in a breakdown. "Chu Men, what have you done?" Lin Zhou's eyes widened in anger, grabbing Chu Men by the collar. "How did you treat my dad like this?" Chu Men's face turned pale, his face full of disbelief, shaking his head frantically. "Impossible. I didn't pierce it wrong. It was an accident. It was definitely an accident. He clearly aimed for the Beihui acupoint. How could it have swerved? But the facts were before his eyes, and he could not defend himself. The surrounding skepticism exploded again, even harsher than before. I think he's just a fraud. He almost killed Elder Lin. What kind of expert's disciple? I think he's just a charlatan. Hurry and kick him out. Don't dirty this place. Chu Men stood on the spot, his face turning green and white, ashamed and resentful, and he blamed all this humiliation on Qin Yi. He stared fixedly at Qin Yi, his eyes full of resentment. Although he didn't know how Qin Yi, who was an ordinary person, managed it, he vaguely felt that the accident just now had everything to do with Qin Yi. Just as the whole scene fell into despair, Qin Yi walked forward slowly, his voice calm but with unquestionable power. Uncle Lin, I also know a little bit of medicine. Why don't you let me try? Brother Qin Yi. Lin Wonking looked up with teary eyes, grabbing his sleeve. Can you really save Grandpa? Rest assured with me here, no problem. Qin Yi rubbed her head, his tone firm. Everyone was stunned, then someone whispered, Young Master Qin also knows medicine. The heir to the Qin family, is he proficient in everything? Qin Yi ignored the gazes of others, knelt down, and pressed his right hand gently on Patriarch Lin Zhen's chest. In an instant, the power of twin hands quietly circulated, red and blue true energy hidden in his palm, directly touching the essence of Patriarch Lin Zhen's life, repairing the damaged internal organs, smoothing out years of hidden injuries, and revering the withered vitality. It took only 10 seconds. Patriarch Lin Zhen, who had been on the verge of death, slowly opened his eyes, his complexion recovering its rosy color at a speed visible to the naked eye. The pain completely disappeared, and he even became spirited, sitting up directly by supporting himself on the ground. Am I okay? Patriarch Lin Zhen was shocked, feeling a lightness and smoothness in his body he had never experienced before. Dad, you are really better. The Lin family members wept with joy. The whole room was dead silent, then erupted into thunderous exclamation. My God, young Master Qin actually cured him. A stubborn illness that even famous doctors both domestically and abroad couldn't cure, young Master Qin solved it with a wave of his hand. This is too terrifying. As expected of the heir to the Qin family, even his medical skills are so superb. He is truly gifted. Lin Wonking threw herself into Qin Yi's arms, crying and laughing, her eyes full of admiration and adoration, her voice soft and sweet. Brother Qin Yi, you are amazing. I knew you could do it. The reliance and adoration in those eyes were undisguised, stinging Chu Men until his eyes turned red, jealousy and hatred almost bursting out of his chest. Patriarch Lin Zhen struggled to stand up, held Qin Yi's hand tightly, tears streaming down his face. Young Qin, thank you. This stubborn illness has tortured me for many years, and now that you have cured it, you are my Patriarch Lin Zhen's savior. The Lin parents were also thanking him incessantly, their demeanor respectful to the extreme. The surrounding guests swarmed up, fawning and complimentary words were endless. Everyone was surrounding Qin Yi, praising him to the heavens. And Chu Men, standing alone in the corner like a clown, endured the disdainful and mocking gazes of everyone. He clenched his fists, his knuckles turning white, his nails digging deep into his palms, oozing blood. Watching Qin Yi being surrounded like the moon among stars, watching Lin Wonking nestled in Qin Yi's arms with admiring eyes, a deep-seated hatred grew in the bottom of Chu Men's heart. Qin Yi, it's you again. I will definitely make you pay the price. Chapter 10 Lin Wonking's Confession. Elder Lin held Qin Yi's hand and expressed his endless gratitude. Once his emotions had settled slightly, he slowly turned his head. His gaze fell upon the disheveled Chu Men standing to the side. His cloudy eyes were filled with disappointment and a hint of anger, and the noise of the entire venue died down along with it. The surrounding commotion quietly faded away, and the gazes of all the guests focused on this moment. No one knew about the old debt of gratitude between Elder Lin and Chu Men's master, King Yuanzi. They only assumed that Elder Lin was going to punish Chu Men for nearly killing him during treatment. Elder Lin's voice was deep and calm, yet it carried immense weight. Chu Men. Chu Men suddenly felt his whole body tremble. His clenched fists shook slightly as he braced himself to push through the crowd. He lowered his head, not daring to meet Elder Lin's gaze. Grandpa Lin. Years ago, I was ambushed by enemies, poisoned, and my meridians were completely destroyed. It was your master, King Yuanzi, who saved me, allowing me to survive. Patriarch Lin Zhen's tone held a hint of nostalgia, but then his tone shifted, filled with disappointment. I had assumed that as a disciple under King Yuanzi, you would surely possess genuine skills and a composed temperament. He paused, a flicker of anger crossing his eyes, though he ultimately suppressed it. Yet today, you recklessly applied needles without having mastered the medical arts, nearly killing me. You have disappointed me greatly. In the end, you haven't learned even a fraction of your master's composure. As soon as these words were spoken, the surrounding guests were in an uproar. So it wasn't that Chu Men lacked ability. He had only learned a smattering of his master's skills. The mockery instantly changed in tone, taking on a sense of pity that he had failed to surpass his master, which in reality only made Chu Men appear even more incompetent. Chu Men's face instantly flushed crimson. He knew that Elder Lin was giving him the utmost leniency by not holding him accountable, all out of consideration for King Yuanzi. Yet, in the eyes of others, this leniency was merely the Lin family showing face to King Yuanzi, while he had become a complete clown. Junior knows his mistake. Chu Men mumbled, his voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz. Elder Lin waved his hand, his tone indifferent. Enough! Out of consideration for your master, I will not punish you. But regarding today's events, you should reflect on yourself. Practice diligently in the future and do not be so impetuous again. Forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to infinite novel audiobooks. This was an order to leave, and also the last shred of dignity the Lin family was granting him. Chu Men felt as if he had been granted an amnesty, yet he was also consumed by shame and anger. No longer caring about the gazes of others, he hurriedly found an excuse. Junior just remembered that Master had some important matters to entrust to me, so I will take my leave now. After speaking, he hunched his back and squeezed out of the crowd in a disheveled manner, his steps staggering so much that he nearly fell. He didn't even dare to turn back to pick up the gold needles that had fallen to the ground. Once his figure disappeared at the entrance of the banquet hall, the surrounding mockery gradually dissipated, and the lively atmosphere of the birthday banquet filled the air once more. Qinyi had been standing by Lin Wonking's side the entire time, his fingertips resting lightly on the small of her back. His gaze swept indifferently over the direction in which Chu Men had left, without a ripple of emotion in his eyes. To him, Chu Men was nothing more than a clown who couldn't stir up any trouble. After Chu Men left, the gloom in the banquet hall completely vanished, and the birthday banquet returned to its warm and lively state. The champagne tower was refilled, melodious music echoed in their ears, and guests took turns flattering Qinyi. The Lin family treated him as an honored guest, while Lin Wonking stuck by Qinyi's side, unable to hide the joy and reliance in her eyes. From beginning to end, this birthday banquet became Qinyi's show, and it only slowly came to an end late at night. Once the guests had dispersed, the courtyard of the old Lin family mansion was dimly lit. The evening breeze brushed through the osmanthus trees, scattering tiny, fragrant petals. Qinyi straightened his suit cuffs and was preparing to drive away. Brother Qinyi. Lin Wonking hurried to catch up, her fingertips gently tugging at his sleeve. Her palms were warm and trembling, and her cheeks were tinged with a faint blush. Qinyi stopped and looked back. What is it? Lin Wonking bit her lower lip and gathered her courage to reveal Chu Men's background. Chu Men's master is the reclusive expert King Yuanzi. Over a decade ago, Grandpa was hunted by enemies and nearly lost his life. It was Senior King Yuanzi who stepped in to save him. Grandpa was grateful for the kindness and made a verbal marriage agreement with the senior at that time, saying that if he had a granddaughter in the future, he would betroth her to his disciple. She looked up, her almond-shaped eyes shining like they held starlight, her tone incredibly serious. I only found out about this recently. I have never known Chu Men, and I have never acknowledged this marriage agreement. In my heart, there has only ever been you. Faced with the young girl's sincere explanation and confession, Qin Yi was slightly taken aback. System, open Lin Wonking's panel. Qin Yi called out to the system in his heart. Instantly, a blue virtual screen appeared in Qin Yi's field of vision. Name, Lin Wonking. Gender, female. Height, 175 cm. Weight, 50 kg. Appearance, 97. Affection, 90 towards host. Fate, hero descends the mountain heroine original. Mysterious yin physique, top-tier cauldron. It turned out that according to the plot, Lin Wonking was the heroine for the Child of Destiny. But seeing that Lin Wonking's affection for him was as high as 90, Qin Yi was slightly surprised. He had unknowingly almost maxed out Lin Wonking's affection. Seeing Qin Yi remain silent, Lin Wonking thought he was angry that she had kept it from him. Just as she was about to explain, Qin Yi chuckled softly, reached out to gently brush away the stray hair by her cheek, his voice so gentle it could melt. I know, I have never cared about it. The so-called marriage agreement is just a verbal promise and does not count. Before he had awakened the memories of his past life, he had always regarded Lin Wonking as the little sister he had protected since childhood, never having any thoughts of crossing the line. Now it was completely different. Having a girl who was so full of him was something his past life self would never have dared to dream of. Looking at the young girl's reddened eyes and her gaze full of sincerity and expectation, that layer of brother-sister barrier was instantly shattered by ardent affection. Lin Wonking could no longer suppress her feelings of many years. She took a deep breath, lifted her head, and said in a crisp, firm voice that echoed in the quiet courtyard, Brother Qin Yi, I like you. I have liked you since I was very young. I don't want to be bound by any marriage agreement. I just want to be your girlfriend and stay by your side forever. As her voice trailed off, she stood on her tiptoes, wrapped her arms around Qin Yi's neck, and took the initiative to press her soft lips against his. A warm, soft sensation washed over him. Qin Yi was stunned for a moment, a flash of surprise crossing his deep eyes, which then melted into overflowing tenderness. He reached out to wrap his arms around her waist, bent down slightly, and gently responded to this long-awaited kiss. The evening breeze carried the scent of flowers, stretching the shadows of the two embraced figures long. The courtyard lights were a warm yellow, reflecting their intertwined figures. In this moment, the quiet atmosphere around them was crafted entirely for them. With no one else to disturb them, they could only feel each other's heartbeats and deep affection. Chapter 11. The Ambush of Chu Men. In the shadows of the Lin family courtyard walls, a figure hid tightly behind the rockery, eyes bloodshot, almost spitting fire. Chu Men had not left at all. He had been hiding outside the banquet hall for a long time, followed them all the way to the courtyard, and witnessed the entire process of Lin Wonking confessing and the two kissing. Slut! Chu Men roared madly in his heart, his teeth chattering, blood seeping from the corners of his mouth. Lin Wonking, you slut! My master saved your grandfather's life, and you actually kissed that piece of trash Qin Yi who relies on his family background in public. Shameless. He stared fixedly at Qin Yi again, the hatred in his eyes turning into bone-chilling killing intent, almost bursting out of his chest. Qin Yi! This mortal who can only rely on his family background dares to steal my woman and ruin my reputation. I will not coexist with you. Intense killing intent surged madly from within Chu Men's body. He gripped the profound iron needles at his waist, his knuckles turning white, his eyes as sinister as a poisonous snake. Damn it, tonight I will intercept and kill you on your way back. I will make sure you die without a complete corpse and take back everything that belongs to me." This kiss lasted for a long time. The two were so passionate and self-forgetful that they seemed to have forgotten the time. Lin Wonking finally could not hold on any longer, and after pulling away, she gasped for air, her face slightly haggard, possessing a delicate beauty. As for Qin Yi, his expression remained as calm as before from beginning to end. After all, he was a land immortal, and holding his breath for this amount of time was naturally effortless for him. Lin Wonking was different. She was just an ordinary person and did not practice ancient martial arts. "All right, it is getting late. You should rest early. I will head back first," Qin Yi said gently. "Then, brother Qin Yi, take care on the road and get home early." Lin Wonking did not ask Qin Yi to stay, but instead instructed him sensibly. "All right." After speaking, Qin Yi walked out of the Lin family and got into his Maybach. The two men in the shadows stared fixedly at the shadow of Qin Yi's car. Once the Maybach drove away from the Lin family, he immediately followed silently. The night was as dark as ink, perfectly covering his full-body killing intent within the darkness. The black Maybach drove steadily out of the old Lin residence, its wheels rolling over the wet bluestone road, gradually merging into the late-night traffic. No one knew that Qin Yi in the driver's seat had his fingertips lightly resting on the steering wheel, his eyes as indifferent as a bottomless cold pool. The cultivation of a land immortal had long allowed him to hear from all directions and see everything. The roaring of Chu men hiding behind the rockery and that aura carrying intense killing intent could not be hidden from him at all. To actually dare to follow me, is he thinking of intercepting and killing me? Sensing that Chu men was following him, Qin Yi deliberately slowed down the car and turned into a remote side road with few people. Here, the streetlights were mottled, and the weeds were overgrown, making it an excellent hunting ground. Traveling to the narrowest part of the mountain road, closest to the cliff, Qin Yi slowly stepped on the brake and parked the car on the side of the road. He pushed the door open and got out, pretending to check the car's condition. He looked down at the wheels, bent over and knocked on the trunk, and then feigned checking the wheels again, muttering to himself, "Strange, why did the tire pressure alarm suddenly go off?" The wind outside the car swept up fallen leaves, blowing the weeds to rustle. In his senses, the figure of Chu men was like a ghostly black shadow, closely following up, and was currently standing silently behind a tree not far away. Seeing Qin Yi get out of the car to check because of a breakdown, a light of wild joy instantly erupted in Chu men's eyes. A God-given opportunity. In this remote section of the road, with no village in front or behind, and no surveillance, as long as he killed Qin Yi right now and pushed this Maybach off the cliff to create an accident of fatigue driving leading to car destruction and death, who would suspect anything? By then, with Lin Wonking having lost the person she liked, Qin Yi, she would naturally have to obediently accept the engagement and return to his side. Qin Yi, prepare to die. The killing intent in Chu men's heart surged violently, and he could no longer hide his figure. With a flicker, he rushed out from behind the tree like a ghost. The profound iron needles at his waist flashed with cold light, and 3 poison needles carried the sound of tearing wind, aiming straight for Qin Yi's heart, throat, and temples. This was his killing move that he had practiced for many years, with lightning-fast speed, specifically targeting vital points. As long as these 3 needles hit, even a martial artist at the peak of the Xianshan realm would only have a dead end, let alone Qin Yi, who was just an ordinary person. However, in the next second, his smile instantly froze on his face, and his pupils shrank to pinpoints. Qin Yi had disappeared. Qin Yi, who should have been standing with his back to him and checking the tires, had vanished into thin air, instantly leaving no trace. Chu men's body suddenly froze in midair, and the 3 profound iron needles pierced through the air, missing their target and making a swish sound. The whole scene was deathly silent. Only the night wind swept up blades of grass, whistling by his ears. Chu men's heart sank to the bottom in an instant, and an unprecedented chill rushed from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. What kind of speed is this? Teleportation. He hadn't even seen clearly how Qin Yi moved, and he hadn't even touched the corner of the other party's clothes. Just at this moment, an indifferent voice sounded behind him without warning. "What do you want to do?" This voice was not loud, but it was like an ice pick, stabbing fiercely into Chu Men's eardrums. Chu Men trembled violently and turned his head sharply. Qin Yi, who knows when, was already standing steadily behind him, at a distance of no more than half a foot. He was still wearing that crisp black suit, his expression calm, even carrying a hint of confusion, his hands in his trouser pockets, looking at him with a smile that was not quite a smile. The cold light of the street lamp outlined Qin Yi's sharp jawline. In those deep eyes, there was not a trace of panic, only a bottomless indifference. Looking at this face so close at hand, Chu Men only felt his scalp go numb, cold sweat trickling down his back, instantly soaking his shirt. A sense of powerlessness swept over his whole body. He realized with horror that Qin Yi's strength was far beyond his imagination, so strong that he could not reach it at all. Just now, regarding his own fatal blow, if Qin Yi had reacted even slightly, he wouldn't even have needed to make a move. He would only have needed to sidestep casually or release a trace of aura, and he would have died instantly. You. Chu Men's voice trembled violently, all the blood drained from his face. His previous arrogance and confidence were completely gone, leaving only bone-deep fear and disbelief. How could you? Qin Yi raised his eyebrows slightly, a look of confusion appearing on his face. He took a small step forward, and a sense of oppression instantly enveloped him. "I remember never provoking you. Why would you want to kill me on this remote road?" His tone was flat, yet carried an unquestionable pressure. Every word was like a heavy hammer, smashing into Chu Men's heart. Looking at Qin Yi's bottomless eyes, the fear and humiliation in Chu Men's heart intertwined, finally turning into a kind of reckless madness. He stared fixedly at Qin Yi, his eyes bloodshot, and roared hoarsely. "Because you stole my woman, Lin Wongking is my fiancée. What right do you have to steal her from me?" "I'm telling you, Qin Yi, she is mine. If you dare to steal my woman, I will have you dead. I want to make you disappear from this world completely." Chapter 12. The End of Chu Men. With extreme anger accompanied by a desperate resolve, Chu Men knew of Qin Yi's strength. He suddenly raised his hand and slammed it hard against his own dantian. Boom! The true qi that had been circulating smoothly within his body instantly spiraled out of control, rampaging through his meridians like a wild horse that had broken free from its reins. Chu Men gritted his teeth, a shrill, stifled groan escaping his throat. He clenched his hands tightly, forcibly drawing upon the last remaining core of his dantian's qi vortex. Using his own essence blood as a catalyst, he frantically tore at the thin, natural energy of the world, brazenly activating his secret technique. This was a secret technique given to him by King Yuanzi for life preservation. It required sacrificing his martial arts foundation, forcibly overdrafting his life force and potential to briefly raise his cultivation realm by a full stage. His true qi, originally at the late Xianshan realm, surged wildly. Although his meridians were stretched to the point of intense pain, Chu Men seemed not to notice, his eyes filled only with scarlet murderous intent. His aura suddenly climbed, breaking through the bottleneck from the late Xianshan realm, instantly reaching the peak of the Xianshan realm, and even briefly arriving at the Grandmaster realm. The air around him was distorted by the agitation of his true qi, and the gravel on the ground was blown away by the invisible energy. Chu Men's muscles bulged, and the veins under his skin protruded like earthworms. He looked like a wild beast that had lost control. "Qin Yi, go to hell." Chu Men roared, stamping his foot hard against the ground, causing the concrete floor to instantly fracture with spider-web-like cracks. His speed reached its absolute limit, several times faster than before, almost turning into an afterimage. With true qi infused into his fist, The wind from his punch whistled as it tore through the air, carrying an earth-shattering momentum as it slammed viciously toward Kinya's chest. If this punch were to land on an ordinary Xiantian realm martial artist, it would be enough to kill them with a single blow. Even a martial artist at the early Grandmaster realm would have to steer clear, and would be injured if they tried to take it head-on. Two men believed that this strike would surely make Qin pay the price, or at least leave him seriously injured. However, the next second, a scene occurred that he would never forget for the rest of his life. Qin stood still, not moving. He didn't even lift an eyelid. Chu Men's powerful, heavy punch landed solidly on his chest. Boom! The violent impact caused the surrounding ground to shatter inch by inch. The muscles on Qin's chest did not stir, not even a single wrinkle appeared. That punch, containing the power of the Grandmaster realm, landed on him as if a child had lightly patted an adult on the shoulder. It couldn't even be considered a scratch. But Chu Men felt as if his fist had struck a towering mountain, immovable. An agonizing pain shot through his fist, and his finger bones felt as if they had been shattered. He was sent flying by the rebounding force, crashing heavily onto the roadside and sliding several meters away, his forehead striking the roadside mountain slope and splitting open a bloody wound. He tried to push himself up with his arms, but found that he had no strength in them at all. The intense pain in his palm continued to spread, and the sight before him left his mind blank, his breathing even coming to a halt. This is impossible. Chu Men stammered, his voice filled with unbelievable trembling. The madness in his eyes faded, replaced by shock and fear that seeped deep into his bones. He knew clearly that he had just activated a secret technique, even raising his cultivation to the Grandmaster realm. With such strength, even an ordinary great Grandmaster would not dare to take his full-force punch head-on. Yet Qin had just stood there, taken his punch, and was completely unharmed. How could this be? At this moment, Qin walked over slowly. His black high-end tailored suit remained crisp, and the aura around him was as indifferent as a bottomless, cold pool, completely different from the tenderness he had shown when kissing Lin Wonking earlier. At this moment, a subtle, indescribable power of heaven and earth lingered around him, as if all things in the world were under his control, and every movement he made carried an immense majesty. Chu Men looked up at Qin, feeling that the young man before him was incredibly unfamiliar. He was clearly younger than him, clearly looking like he had just reached adulthood, so why did he possess such terrifying strength? Peak Grandmaster realm? No, definitely not. That subtle power of heaven and earth just now, he is at least a great Grandmaster, such a young great Grandmaster. Chu Men's heart pounded wildly, the fear in his heart drowning his reason like a tide. He wanted to flee, but his legs felt as heavy as if they were filled with lead. He couldn't even move a single step. Just then, Qin's gaze fell upon him, and in an instant, a supreme pressure swept out from his body, covering the sky and earth. That was not ordinary true chi pressure, but the pressure unique to the land immortal realm, containing the laws of heaven and earth. Time seemed to stand still. The falling leaves by the roadside froze in midair, and even the air seemed to solidify into substance. Chu Men felt as if a 10,000-ton mountain was pressing down on his head, and a suffocating sensation of the world collapsing enveloped him instantly. Thump! Chu Men could no longer hold on. His legs went weak, and he fell heavily to his knees, immediately prostrating himself on the ground, his head pressed tightly against the cold earth, unable to move even a single bit. Creak, creak. The sound of bones fracturing echoed clearly in the silent night. Chu Men's body was continuously compressed and cracked under the pressure. Every inch of his bones, emitting a painful wail. His internal organs were also displaced and damaged by the pressure. His throat tasted sweet, and a mouthful of hot blood gushed out, splattering onto the road, a shocking and eye-catching sight. Arg! Chu Men let out a heart-rending scream, but he didn't even have the strength to lift his head. He could clearly feel that his foundation was being crushed bit by the pressure. his meridians snapping inch by inch, his Danshan's chi vortex completely shattering, and even the slight improvement in his realm he had just achieved through the secret technique dissipated into smoke instantly. No, impossible. Chu Men's consciousness blurred in the intense pain, yet he still roared frantically, his eyes filled with desperate disbelief. Qin Yi was clearly younger than him, clearly looked like just a pampered rich second generation. How could he possibly possess such terrifying strength? A celestial being. This realm stands at the pinnacle of the ancient martial arts world. How could it appear on a young man under 20 years old? This simply defies all reason. Qin Yi walked slowly to the front of the prostrate, immobile Chu Men, looking due. Down at him from above. There was no warmth in his eyes, only indifference, as if he were looking at an ant. His voice was very light, yet it struck Chu Men's heart like a heavy hammer, carrying a suffocating mockery. Is this all the strength you have? You dare to clamor before me with a short-lived burst of power, exchanged by destroying your own foundation. In the end, you are nothing but a clown, a complete and utter piece of trash. As his words fell, Qin Yi slowly raised his foot, his black leather shoe landing on top of Chu Men's head. There was no true qi reinforcement, no deliberate application of force, just a light step. Cracked. A crisp sound of bone fracturing rang out, followed by the dull thud of flesh and blood splattering. Chu Men's head, like a watermelon being stepped on, instantly burst open. Red and white brain matter mixed with blood, splattering all over the road beneath Qin Yi's feet. However, the moment Chu Men's head burst, Qin Yi's leather shoe was wrapped in true qi, so it was not stained by a single drop of blood. Chu Men's scream came to an abrupt end. His body twitched twice, and then he completely lost all signs of life. Qin Yi frowned slightly, moved his foot away in disgust, and waved his hand casually. An invisible burst of energy swept out, landing on Chu Men's corpse. Boom! Chu Men's body instantly turned into a mist of blood that filled the sky, and with a gust of wind, it dissipated into the air, leaving not even a trace behind. Chu Men, who had just been clamoring to kill him, now didn't even have a single bone left. To him, Chu Men was nothing more than an ant that didn't know the height of the sky or the depth of the earth, seeking its own death. The strength of a land, immortal, naturally shines with the heaven and earth, and every movement can influence the celestial phenomena. Chu Men's little tricks were, before him, nothing more than an ant trying to shake a tree, ridiculous and pathetic. Qin Yi turned and walked back to the car, opened the door, and sat inside. The Maybach restarted, steadily driving away from this desolate side road and heading in the direction of the Qin family. Chapter 13, King Yuanzi's death. Not long after Chu Men died, in a dilapidated small courtyard deep within King Yuan Mountain, an old man sat upright, wearing a clear gray Taoist robe, with white hair and beard, possessing an ethereal, immortal demeanor. He was King Yuanzi, now at the advanced age of 145. His cultivation had long reached the peak of Great Grandmaster, with 1 foot already across the threshold of the heaven-human realm, making him a renowned powerhouse in the ancient martial arts world. However, time spares no one. His lifespan was nearing its end. Although his physical appearance maintained the look of a master in his 70s or 80s, his internal vitality had long since decayed. He was only a few years away from the mortal limit of 150 years. Over these years, he had cultivated diligently without ceasing, but due to limited talent, he could only rely on the accumulation of time. Finally, at the moment his lifespan was nearing its end, he had touched upon the heaven-human realm, just half a step away from breaking through. The heaven-human realm was a leap in life level. Lifespan would double compared to those below the heaven-human realm, granting nearly 300 years of life. Breaking through would be enough to allow his withered body to regain vitality. And Chu Men was an important chess piece he had painstakingly cultivated for 20 years. He had long since set up a grand scheme. After discovering that Lin Wonking possessed the mysterious yin physique, he orchestrated a rescue of Elder Lin. Then, using that life-saving grace, he made the Lin family agree to a marriage engagement, after which Chu Men would marry Lin Wonking. Lin Wonking's mysterious yin physique and Chu Men's pure yang physique were natural dual cultivation partners. Once Chu Men and Lin Wonking dual cultivated and broke through to Great Grandmaster, with a solid foundation and perfected true qi, he would personally devour Chu Men, seizing his life's refined true qi, and trigger his own century of accumulation to break through the shackles in one go and step into the heaven-human realm. Chu Men was the key to him extending his life and achieving the heaven-human realm. Inside the small courtyard, King Yuanzi spent his days with eyes closed, regulating his breath, sorting out his increasingly withered vitality, attempting to delay the passing of his lifespan. Suddenly, his mind jolted violently, and a sharp sound of snapping came from deep within his sea of consciousness. That was the mark he had planted in Chu Men since childhood. At this moment, it had completely dissipated. Ahem. Qing Yuanzi opened his eyes abruptly. His originally cloudy yet sharp eyes instantly erupted with monstrous fury. His robes whipped about wildly, and the stone table and stools in the cave dwelling were instantly shattered into powder by his violent true qi. Who is it? A furious roar resounded through Qingyuan Mountain, echoing across the mountains, startling birds and causing beasts to flee. He could clearly sense that Chu Men's life aura had been completely and utterly extinguished, leaving not even a trace of a remnant soul. 20 years of painstaking effort, carefully laid plans, the dual cultivation strategy, the grand plan of devouring. Everything had turned into bubbles along with the death of Chu Men. He was only one last step away from the heaven-human realm. With Chu Men dead, he had no possibility of breaking through again. In a few years, his lifespan would be exhausted, and he would turn into a handful of dust. Who is it who dares to kill my King Yuanzi's disciple? Consumed by extreme rage, King Yuanzi's true qi surged throughout his body, causing the spiritual energy of the entire Qingyuan mountain to churn in reverse, changing the wind and clouds. In his 145 years of life, he had never been so furious. Chu Men was not just his disciple. He was his life, his Tao, his only hope for extending his life. I will find you and tear you into 10,000 pieces, grind your bones into dust. The monstrous hatred almost crushed his Tao heart. But after his rage, King Yuanzi forcibly suppressed his chaotic emotions. He did not know whose hands Chu Men had died at, so he could only use a forbidden technique. Divining the heavenly secrets. This was a secret technique that only a great grandmaster could touch, using one's own essence, blood, and lifespan as a conduit to peer into karma and lock onto the murderer. Divining those with a lower cultivation realm than oneself carried a smaller price. The stronger the person being divined, the more terrifying the backlash. But at this moment, King Yuanzi could no longer care about that. He bit his tongue, spraying out a mouthful of essence blood, his hands swiftly forming seals, his aged voice carrying determination. With my century of Tao foundation, essence blood, and lifespan as a conduit, divine the cause of my disciple Chu Men's death, and lock onto the true culprit. In an instant, golden light erupted within the cave dwelling, the void twisted slightly, and countless fine threads of karma appeared before him. He wanted to follow the karmic thread of Chu Men's death, to find the person who had destroyed everything for him. Meanwhile, at the Qin family in High City, Qin Yi had returned to his bedroom, his aura gentle and peaceful. He was currently leaning against the window, his fingertips lightly tapping the glass, the gentle image of kissing Lin Wonking flashing through his mind. Suddenly, Qin Yi's eyes turned slightly cold, and he slowly lifted his gaze, looking toward the distant horizon outside the window. Someone is divining my karma. The voice was light and calm, yet carried an imperceptible coldness. With his land immortal realm, His spirit had long since merged with heaven and earth, making his karma unfathomable. Daring to cross thousands of miles to spy on him with a secret technique was simply seeking his own death. Qin Yi did not make any unnecessary movements. Even his gaze did not change. He only shifted his thoughts. Instantly, the power of the entire world was stirred by an invisible giant hand. Above the firmament, the wind and clouds churned in reverse, the laws of the world roared, and an immortal might that surpassed all things in the world traced back along the karmic line of divination coming from Qingyuan Mountain. This was not an ordinary true Qi attack. This was unique to the land immortal realm, tracing the source and root, a karmic backlash. Thousands of miles away, in the cave dwelling on Qingyuan Mountain, King Yuanzi was fully focused, exploring along the karmic line. The image before his eyes gradually became clear. High city, deep night, a secluded path. A young figure in black stood there, indifferent. The moment he saw the young man's face clearly, boom. An indescribable, irresistible, and unstoppable terrifying force surged back along the karmic line. It was not true Qi, not true essence. It was the laws of heaven and earth, the power of karma. Qing Yuanzi was struck as if by lightning, spraying out a large mouthful of pitch-black essence blood. His body convulsed violently, and he flew backward, slamming heavily into a nearby tree. The large tree collapsed with a crash. He struggled to get up, only to find that the force had already penetrated deep into his soul, shredding his meridians, shattering his dantian, and tearing apart his internal organs. His already nearly exhausted lifespan, under this single blow, began to drain away frantically. His 145 years of cultivation, his thick true essence at the peak of great grandmaster, were like paper in front of this power, crumbling inch by inch. Qing Yuanzi collapsed into the rubble, his bones broken into pieces, blood spraying wildly, his aura instantly weakening to the extreme, directly reaching the brink of death. He widened his eyes, and in his cloudy pupils, only extreme, incomprehensible shock and fear remained. He had lived for 145 years, traversing the ancient martial arts world, having seen great grandmasters, even having seen true heaven humans. But that power just now was simply not something a heaven human could possess. Divining a heaven human, although he would be heavily injured, he would definitely be able to survive. To be able to, from thousands of miles away, just by relying on a single karmic divination, backhandedly suppress him to the brink of death. There was only one possibility. A wheezing, rattling sound came from King Yuanzi's throat. Using his last ounce of strength, he roared out hoarsely, tremblingly, and incredulously. Beyond the heaven-human realm, land immortal. How is this possible? How can a land immortal still exist in this world? Before his roar had even faded, the last trace of vitality within his body was completely exhausted. His eyes remained wide open, filled with endless unwillingness, regret, and fear. This titan of the ancient martial arts world, who had lived for 145 years and was at the half-step heaven-human realm, expired right there. Only his corpse remained, lying quietly on the cold ground. High city, Qin family. Qin Yi withdrew his focus, the coldness in his eyes fading, and he returned to calm. To him, King Yuanzi was nothing more than an ant whose lifespan was nearing its end, desperately struggling to pry into heavenly secrets. To him, this land immortal, it was something that could be extinguished with a flick of a finger. He glanced indifferently toward the direction of Qingyuan Mountain, his eyes without a ripple. Chapter 14, Secret of All and the Sweet Daily Life with Lin Wongking. Ding, host killed the child of Destiny Chu Men, mission completed. Reward received, Secret of All 100% trigger version. Reward introduction, one of the 9 secrets of Taoism. It can instantly increase combat power by 10 times in all aspects, covering strength, speed, defense, soul power, true essence intensity, etc., without any side effects. The original Secret of All had low individual trigger efficiency. The system has modified it to trigger 100% as long as true energy is consumed. Note: can be taught to others. Ding detected that the Child of Destiny's master, King Yuanzi, died due to causal backlash from the host. Additional reward issued: Child of Destiny Locator. Child of Destiny Locator details. Once a Child of Destiny is detected, you can lock onto their precise location in real time. Two system prompts sounded in succession. A smile appeared in Kinya's eyes, and the aura around him quickly softened, becoming joyful. With a thought, the complete inheritance and usage method of the Secret of All surged into his mind. The mysterious and obscure Taoist secret text was easily mastered by him, and that intangible Child of Destiny locator was directly branded into his sea of consciousness, ready to be activated with a single thought. Secret of All, increasing combat power by 10 times. This can be taught to those close to me. Qin Yi muttered to himself, his tone full of satisfaction. Grandparents' cultivation has long reached the peak of the ancient martial arts world. Although they don't usually need it, it's a 10-fold increase in combat power after all. At the peak of the heaven-human realm, a 10-fold increase in all-around combat power should be enough to briefly contend with an average land immortal. And Mom and Dad can also become invincible within the same realm, or even kill enemies across realms. Qin Yi thought, deciding to teach the Secret of All to his family the next time he saw them. The next morning, just as the sky was breaking, the rising sun cast warm golden light through the clouds, and the Qin family courtyard was filled with the fragrance of flowers. Qin Yi had just gotten up and put on a simple white casual outfit when he heard the light sound of a car at the entrance of the old mansion. Butler Uncle Fu walked over quickly and reported with a smile. "Young master, Miss Lin is here." Qin Yi raised his eyebrows slightly, a trace of surprise flashing in his eyes. He hadn't expected Lin Wonking to come looking for him so early, and his footsteps walked toward the entrance unconsciously. Just as he reached the center of the courtyard, he saw a charming figure running quickly toward him, the joy in her eyes impossible to hide. Qin Yi carefully examined the figure sprinting toward him. Today, Lin Wonking's outfit was exceptionally fresh and lively. She wore an apricot-colored knitted short top that outlined her slender and graceful figure, paired with a white pleated skirt that fell to her knees, revealing her fair and straight calves. She wore beige leather shoes, simple and exquisite. Her long hair was loosely tied into a half-up bun, with a few stray strands hanging beside her cheeks, making her skin appear as white as jade. She wore no makeup, yet her lips were red and her teeth were white, her almond eyes curved, looking lively and sweet. In daily life, Lin Wonking was always cold and aloof when facing outsiders, with a faint sense of detachment in her eyes, never intentionally getting close to anyone. But standing in front of Qin Yi at this moment, the passion and boldness in her eyes were undisguised, full of unhidden love and longing, completely lacking the cold and distant appearance she showed to others. Before Qin Yi could speak, Lin Wonking had already run up to him, naturally reaching out to hold his arm, her little head leaning gently on his shoulder, her voice soft and sweet with a coquettish tone, the tail of her voice lifting slightly. "Brother Qin Yi, I missed you so much. I didn't sleep well last night, and as soon as the sky brightened, I couldn't help but come to find you. You won't think I'm intruding, will you?" The young girl carried a faint scent of gardenia, and her appearance leaning against his side was delicate and cute. Qin Yi's heart softened instantly, and he reached out to rub the top of her head dotingly, his tone so gentle it could drip water. "Silly girl, how could I? You can come whenever you want." "Then will Brother Qin Yi keep me company today?" Lin Wonking looked up at him, her almond eyes full of expectation, her small hand gripping his sleeve and shaking it gently. "You promised to accept my confession yesterday. I don't want to stay at home. I want to go on a date with you. Just the two of us, okay?" "Okay." Hearing this, Qin Yi didn't hesitate at all and agreed immediately, his fingertips gently scraping her nose. "Everything you say goes. I will keep you company all day today." The car first drove into a French breakfast shop hidden under the plane trees in the Old Street district, where the warm yellow light wrapped around the milky aroma of baking, and the atmosphere was gentle and quiet. Having received Kinya's consent, Lin Wonking smiled until her eyes curved like crescent moons, as if she had obtained the most precious treasure. She took Kinya's hand and walked toward the Porsche 911 she drove, starting their wonderful time today. Their date was simple but full of sweetness. Kinyi put down all his airs and spent the whole day accompanying Lin Wonking to do the things she wanted to do. First, they drove to Lin Wonking's favorite French breakfast shop, accompanied her to eat warm croissants and drink sweet pumpkin porridge, listening to her chatter about interesting things from her childhood. Afterward, they went to the art exhibition hall in the city center. Lin Wonking liked oil paintings, so Kinyi accompanied her to appreciate them one by one, patiently listening to her explain the details of the paintings. In the afternoon, the two went to a park in the suburbs, sitting on the spacious lawn soaking up the sun. Lin Wonking leaned on Kinya's shoulder, quietly accompanying him, occasionally whispering a few words, the atmosphere warm and lingering. In the evening, Kinyi took her to a revolving restaurant by the river. Watching the sunset glow sprinkle on the river, the two had a romantic dinner together. Lin Wonking served food to Kinyi from time to time, and the admiration and joy in her eyes never ceased. The whole day of dating, without any outsiders disturbing them, only the sweetness and comfort between lovers. Lin Wonking stuck to Kinya's side throughout the whole process, her heart and eyes filled with him, and Kinyi also always wore a doting smile, patiently accompanying her, giving all his gentleness to the young girl before him. Chapter 15, A Night of Tenderness. The night was deep, the stars and moon hidden. The lights in the Kin family villa gradually extinguished, leaving only a few corridor lights at the corners quietly spilling warm light into the night. When Kinyi and Lin Wonking returned to the living room, the wall clock pointed to 11 o'clock. Kinyi had originally intended to take Lin Wonking back to the Lin family, but she gripped his wrist, refusing to let go. Her almond-shaped eyes were moist, filled with complete reliance and reluctance to part. "Brother Kinyi, I feel so lonely by myself at night. Every time I close my eyes, my head is full of you. I want to stay and keep you company tonight. Is that okay?" The young girl's voice was soft and sweet like cotton candy, the tail end carrying a slight tremor. She showed the softness of a woman without reservation beside Kinyi, and Kinyi's heart instantly softened into a puddle upon hearing it. Looking at the anticipation in Lin Wonking's eyes, he shook his head helplessly and dotingly. "I really can't do anything with you, silly girl. All right, stay then. I'll have Uncle Fu prepare a room for you." "No need for a guest room." Lin Wonking's eyes lit up instantly, and she immediately leaned closer, almost pressing against him. "I'll just stay here with Brother Kinyi. We're lovers now, isn't it only natural that we live together?" Kinyi laughed despite himself and stopped refusing, leading her into his bedroom. Seeing him agree, Lin Wonking smiled with her eyes curving into crescents. She stood on tiptoe and quickly planted a kiss on his lips, so sweet it made one's heart tremble. Before Kinyi could react, she blushed and hid in the bathroom. "I'm going to take a shower first, Brother Kinyi, wait for me." Watching the closed bathroom door, Kinyi shook his head helplessly. The bedroom was carpeted in light gray, and the floor lamp cast a warm, soft glow. Kinyi leaned against the headboard and picked up his phone to scroll through some short videos. Originally, he just wanted to relax for a moment, but he suddenly scrolled past a financial news video with a particularly eye-catching headline. A mysterious billionaire emerges in High City, spending $100 billion to acquire 51% shares of tech leader Zingtu Group. His fingertips paused. Kinyi clicked on the news to read the details. The content only stated that this billionaire remained anonymous throughout the process, completing the acquisition through an overseas trust fund. They were lavish with their spending yet acted in secrecy, becoming the largest shareholder of Zingtu Group overnight and causing a massive stir in the high city business circle. Seeing this, Kinya's fingertips paused, and his eyes brightened slightly. Another child of destiny. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to infinite novel audiobooks. This thought flooded his mind almost instantly. Although Chu-Men was already dead, this was a world that combined both male and female-oriented genres. And this mysterious billionaire who had suddenly appeared, holding massive capital to anonymously acquire shares of a tech group, acting both flamboyantly and mysteriously, was highly likely to be the new child of destiny. Interesting, Qin Yi whispered to himself, casually saving the video, already having a plan in mind. Tomorrow, I'll have Uncle Fu investigate this billionaire's identity and background to see if they are a god-tier tycoon-type child of destiny. He had just put down his phone when the bathroom door opened with a click. Qin Yi instinctively turned his head to look, and his heart skipped a beat. Lin Wangqing stood at the doorway, wearing a light pink silk nightgown. The material of the nightgown was extremely thin, almost translucent, clinging to her body and outlining her exquisite figure to perfection, with the fullness of her chest rising in an astonishing arc. Her waist was so slender it could barely be grasped by a hand, and the hem of the skirt barely covered the tops of her thighs, highlighting her pert, rounded buttocks. Her thighs were fair, straight, and slightly fleshy. These curvaceous lines, accentuated by the thin fabric, appeared even more alluring. She had just finished showering, her long hair, dried with a blow dryer, draped over her shoulders. The fresh scent of body wash lingered on her body, mixed with her unique sweet and soft fragrance, drifting in wisps into Qin Yi's nostrils. Her cheeks were flushed with a faint crimson from the heat of the shower. Her almond-shaped eyes were moist, carrying the haziness and shyness of someone who had just stepped out of the bath. Facing Qin Yi's gaze, she subconsciously gripped the hem of her nightgown, her eyes darting away, yet she couldn't help but steal glances to see his reaction. Her lips were lightly pursed, looking for all the world like she was ready to be plucked. Her figure beneath the nightgown was already hot, and this, ready-to-be-plucked, appearance acted like a little flame, instantly igniting the heat in the depths of Qin Yi's heart. His Adam's apple bobbed, and he subconsciously swallowed, but his gaze remained fixed on Lin Wangqing, unable to pull away at all. Lin Wangqing's cheeks grew even redder under his gaze. She moved her feet lightly until she was in front of him, her voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz, yet filled with absolute sincerity. "Brother Qin Yi, I have liked you since I was little. After waiting for so many years, I can finally be with you openly and honestly. I want to give myself to you completely. In this life, I only want to be your woman, to stay by your side forever and never leave." As her voice fell, she lifted her eyes to look at Qin Yi, her eyes full of sincerity and determination. Her cheeks were flushed red, and her whole body exuded an innocent allure. Every expression tugged at Qin Yi's heartstrings. Qin Yi had always been doting on Lin Wangqing. Seeing her shy and moving, with eyes full only of him, combined with the stunning figure outlined by the thin nightgown, the heat in his heart surged instantly, and he could no longer restrain himself. He reached out to wrap his arms around Lin Wangqing's waist, gently pulling her into his embrace. His palms touched the delicate skin of her waist, and the warm, soft sensation made his heart tremble. Lin Wangqing leaned into his embrace, her whole body trembling slightly, but she did not retreat in the slightest. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with anticipation and shyness. Qin Yi lowered his head, looking at the young girl's flushed lips and clear eyes. He could no longer hold back and leaned down to kiss her, with gentleness and uncontrollable cherishing, pouring all his love into this long, lingering kiss. The light in the bedroom was warm, yellow, and ambiguous, stretching their embracing figures long. Subsequently, Qin Yi scooped up Lin Wangqing and walked toward the soft bed, his movements gentle yet carrying an irresistible force. The light pink nightgown was gently slipped off, and the young girl's fair skin glowed softly under the light. Qin Yi's kisses fell on her forehead, her brows, her cheeks, and finally on her lips, carrying a unique tenderness and dominance. The night deepened. From the bedroom came the moving, delicate moans of the woman and the rough, heavy breathing of the man, weaving together into the most moving melody. At this moment, the two finally completely surrendered their bodies and minds to each other. Chapter 16. A Sweet Lunch. The next day, sunlight filtered through the bedroom's floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a warm glow that gently wrapped around the lingering, intimate warmth of the room. The passion of the previous night had exhausted Lin Wongqing's energy, leaving her in a deep slumber. Qin woke up first. Opening his eyes, he saw the clock had already ticked past 10 in the morning, and the bright sun was already high outside the window. He shifted his body slightly and turned his head to see Lin Wongqing sleeping soundly beside him. Thinking of the madness of the night before and Lin Wongqing's pleas for mercy at the end, Qin couldn't help but smile. As a land immortal, he possessed a powerful body and abundant energy. The intimacy of last night was negligible in terms of the toll it took on him. The young girl was sleeping deeply. Her long eyelashes hung like small fans beneath her eyelids, and her cheeks still held a lingering flush. Her usually lively brows and eyes were relaxed now, adding a touch of delicate, lazy softness. Her hair was scattered messily across the pillow, and her lotus-white arm rested lightly on the quilt, her skin glowing with the luster of fine mutton-fat jade. Just as Qin was quietly watching her, a crisp system notification suddenly rang out in his mind. Ding! Detected that the host has completely captured the heart of the Destiny heroine Lin Wongqing and claimed the Destiny heroine's first time. Reward: God-level culinary skills, proficient in the techniques of all global cuisines. Prepared dishes possess both excellent taste and nourishing effects, able to warm the meridians and regulate the body and mind, with flavors reaching the pinnacle of perfection. God-level culinary skills have been automatically integrated. The host may utilize them at any time. As the system notification faded, countless techniques for cooking, ingredient pairing, and heat control flooded into Qin's mind. A trace of a smile flashed in his eyes as he looked back at Lin Wongqing, inadvertently catching sight of that striking and moving splash of crimson on the white bedsheets, and his heart was instantly filled with tenderness. He looked at Lin Wongqing again. Name: Lin Wongqing. Gender: female. Height: 175 cm. Weight: 51 kg. Appearance: 97. Realm: Peak of Haoshan. Affection: 100 life and death companionship. Fate: heroine of expert descends the mountain original, mysterious yin physique, top-tier cauldron. Last night's encounter had allowed Lin Wongqing to absorb his primordial yang, nourishing her body and allowing her physique to transcend the mortal realm, reaching the peak of Haoshan directly. Qin moved her hand, which was resting on him, with extreme care, afraid of waking the sleeping girl. He carefully got up, got dressed, and after washing up went straight downstairs to the villa's kitchen. Usually, there was a private chef in the house, but at this moment, he wanted to cook a meal for Lin Wongqing himself to reward her for giving him her heart. Possessing God-level culinary skills, Qin's control over ingredients and heat had reached a state of pure perfection. He casually took fresh ingredients from the refrigerator, handling and cooking them with fluid, skillful movements. In less than half an hour, a lunch full of color, aroma, and taste was laid out on the dining table. The honey-glazed ribs, with their glistening red color and tender, melt-in-the-mouth meat. The steamed sea bass, fresh, juicy, and exuding a faint savory aroma. The broccoli with minced garlic, crisp, emerald green, and fragrant with garlic. The rich, sweet-and-sour tomato egg soup with soft egg ribbons. And a pot of millet porridge, boiled until thick and creamy, nourishing and warming. Every dish was rich in aroma and enticing in color, enough to whet anyone's appetite just by the smell. Qin had just placed the last dish on the table when he heard light footsteps on the stairs. He turned his head and immediately saw Lin Wongqing coming down. At this moment, Lin Wongqing was completely different from the lively, pretty, and slightly aloof eldest miss of the Lin family she had been in the past. After experiencing womanhood for the first time, her aura had quietly transformed. The youthful innocence and restlessness had diminished, replaced by a touch of gentleness and allure unique to a woman. Her brows and eyes were wrapped in an indescribable charm, and her cheeks were flushed with a faint pink. Her long hair was casually tied in a low bun, with a few stray strands hanging by the side of her neck. She wore loose, light-colored loungewear, yet it could not hide her exquisite figure. Her steps trembled slightly as she walked, appearing a bit unsteady, and she could only lightly hold the stair railing, taking one step at a time. She looked delicate, soft, and pitiable. Seeing Kinyi in the dining room, Lin Wonking's initially shy face instantly blossomed with a brilliant smile. Her eyes shone as if they held starlight. Forgetting the discomfort in her steps, she quickened her pace toward him. Her voice was soft, sweet, and carried a hint of playful, naive charm as she called out directly, "Husband." This husband was called out naturally and affectionately, full of a young girl's devotion and reliance. Kinyi felt his heart warm upon hearing it, and a joyful smile instantly spread across his face. He quickly stepped forward to gently steady her, fearing she might not be stable, his tone so gentle it could melt. "Walk slowly, don't rush. Why didn't you sleep a little longer?" "I couldn't sleep. I woke up and didn't see you, so I came down to find you." Lin Wonking leaned into his arms, the scent of the food filling her nose. Only then did she notice the table full of delicacies. Her eyes widened in surprise, and she looked up at Kinyi, her eyes full of disbelief. "Brother Kinyi, are these dishes, all made by you? I never knew you could cook before. This is too amazing." In her impression, as the heir of the Qin family, Kinyi had always been the center of attention and had never touched the trivial matters of the kitchen. She hadn't expected him to be able to make such a table of food that looked incredibly delicious, and the admiration and love in her heart grew even more. "I just learned it. Sit down and try it, see if it suits your taste." Kinyi helped her sit by the dining table, thoughtfully ladled a bowl of millet porridge for her, and pushed it in front of her. Lin Wonking picked up her chopsticks and first placed a piece of honey-glazed rib into her mouth. With a gentle chew, the tenderness of the rib and the sweetness of the honey sauce melted on her tongue. The taste was delicious to the extreme, far surpassing any Michelin-starred meal she had ever eaten. Her eyes instantly widened, as if she had discovered a treasure. She looked at Kinyi with starry eyes, praising him repeatedly. "It's so delicious. Brother Kinyi, your cooking is absolutely superb, 100 times better than what my family's chef makes." Looking at her satisfied and happy appearance, Kinya's eyes were full of doting. He reached out and rubbed the top of her head. "If it's delicious, eat more. Don't go hungry." Lin Wonking nodded vigorously, then picked up her chopsticks, picked up a piece of tender sea bass belly meat, carefully picked out the fish bones, and placed it into Kinya's bowl. Her eyes curved, and her tone was full of tenderness. "Husband, you've worked hard. You should eat more too, to replenish your energy." Chinyi looked at the fish meat in his bowl, the smile on his lips never fading. He didn't say much, just silently picked out the dishes she liked and put them in her bowl as well. The two of them snuggled together, you feeding me a bite, I picking a piece for you. A warm atmosphere lingered in the dining room, and the sunlight shone on the two of them, creating a sweet and joyous ambience. Chapter 17, Lin Wonking. That Chu Men really deserves to die. After lunch, the maid came forward to clear the table, while Kinyi took Lin Wonking's hand and walked over to the leather sofa in the living room to sit down. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, spilling over the two of them, warm and cozy, enveloping the room in a sweet, sticky atmosphere. Lin Wonking still clung to Kinyi, her little head resting on his shoulder, her small hand gently playing with his fingers, her whole body radiating the passion and dependence of someone who had just fallen in love. Kinyi lowered his eyes to look at the young girl snuggled beside him, his fingertips stroking her soft hair, his tone gentle and serious. "Wonking, since we are already together, you should move in with me from now on, so you can accompany me all the time." As soon as these words were spoken, Lin Wonking instantly raised her head, her beautiful eyes wide with undisguised surprise, her cheeks flushing red, and she nodded repeatedly, her voice filled with irrepressible excitement. "Really? Of course I'm willing. I've wanted to live with Brother Kinyi for a long time." She happily rubbed against Kinya's chest, then thought for a moment and added, I'll head back to the Kin family in a while to pack my luggage, and by the way, tell my parents and grandfather that we are together and that I'm moving in. They will surely be happy for me. Chin-Yi rubbed the top of her head without the slightest hesitation, his tone gentle. All right, whatever you say. You can go back whenever you want. If you need anything else, just call me anytime. Lin Wonking agreed sweetly, and just as she was calculating what to bring over, she suddenly slapped her forehead, looking annoyed. Oh no, I almost forgot something important. There's still that nominal engagement with Chu Men. I've been so happy being with you that I completely forgot. After I return to the Kin family, I'll immediately go find Chu Men and completely annul this ridiculous engagement. I am Brother Kinya's person now, and I don't want to have any connection with him. Looking at the young girl's puffed-up appearance, the smile on the corners of Kinya's mouth deepened slightly, and he spoke softly. You don't need to go find him. Lin Wonking was stunned, looking at him in confusion. Why? We can't just drag this engagement on forever. I don't recognize it. He is already dead. Kinya's voice was indifferent, as if he were speaking of a trivial matter. What? Lin Wonking sat up straight from his arms, her face full of shock, her eyes wide with disbelief. Dead? Chu Men is dead? How is that possible? He was perfectly fine at the birthday banquet the day before yesterday. We haven't seen each other for only a day. How could he suddenly die? Brother Kinyi, what on earth happened? Although her tone was full of urgency, there was no regret for Chu Men's death, only confusion about the cause of the event and faint worry. She was afraid that someone might want to use Chu Men's death to deal with the Kin family. Chin-Yi looked at her nervous appearance, sighed softly, and slowly recounted the events of the night before last. The night before last, I was driving back to the Kin family when jealousy got the better of Chu Men. He intercepted and tried to kill me halfway, so I killed him just like that. His tone was calm as he briefly explained how Chu Men, in a fit of shame and anger, used a secret technique to forcibly raise his cultivation realm to ambush him. But it was beyond his capabilities, and he was ultimately easily dealt with. Lin Wonking listened in terror, and before Kinyi could finish, she immediately reached out to grab his arm, looking him up and down carefully, her small hands gently touching his chest and arms. Her eyes were slightly red, and her tone was full of anxiety and worry. Brother Kinyi, were you hurt at that time? Is there anywhere you feel uncomfortable? Chu Men was the disciple of King Yuanzi, and King Yuanzi is a great grandmaster. He himself was also an expert in the Xianshan realm. He ambushed you. Were you hurt? She didn't care at all about the life or death of Chu Men and King Yuanzi. Her heart and eyes were filled only with Kinya's safety. Although she knew Kinyi was powerful, she still subconsciously asked if he was injured. This pure concern made Kinya's heart warm involuntarily. He held Lin Wonking's small hand in return and pulled her tightly back into his arms, his eyes full of doting and emotion, as he softly comforted her. Silly girl, don't worry, I'm completely fine. That bit of strength Chu Men piled up using secret techniques is not even comparable to an ant in front of me. I could solve it with a wave of my hand. As for King Yuanzi, he was just a peak great grandmaster nearing the end of his lifespan. To me, he was also just an ant, not worth mentioning. That King Yuanzi, after sensing that Chu Men had died, tried to exhaust his lifespan to calculate the heavenly secrets to seek revenge. But instead, he was backlashed by his cultivation and directly perished. Lin Wonking lay in his arms, listening to his steady heartbeat, and her suspended heart finally settled. Then she clenched her small fists indignantly and said angrily, Chu Men really deserved to die. His medical skills were not good enough, he caused trouble, and instead of repenting, he went to ambush you out of jealousy. He was simply rotten to the core. Fortunately, Brother Kinyi is powerful, otherwise I would have been worried to death. After speaking, she tilted her head up, looking at Kinyi with eyes full of undisguised worship and admiration, sparkling like stars, as if she were looking at the greatest hero in the world. Her little face was also full of pride, as if to say, look, this is my man. Chin-Yi was looked at by her bright, sparkling eyes, and he felt deeply satisfied. He enjoyed Lin Wonking's unreserved worship and adoration the most. He gently scraped the tip of her nose with his fingertip and asked with a hint of a smile, "Stop worrying about me for now. Besides that slight discomfort when you woke up this morning, do you feel anything else different about your body now?" Lin Wonking was slightly stunned, then frowned slightly and began to carefully sense her own body. She first recalled that when she had just woken up in the morning, there was still a faint, dull pain in her lower body, and she was trembling slightly when walking. After eating lunch, that pain had already largely subsided. Sensing more carefully, she only felt light and airy all over. In her originally slender arms, there seemed to be a strength she had never felt before. Sensing carefully, even her hearing and vision had become much sharper. The sound of the wind blowing the leaves in the garden outside the living room and the honking of cars on the distant street could be heard clearly, and even the feathers of the little birds flying outside the window could be seen with extreme clarity. She opened her eyes wide, looking at Kinyi with surprise, her voice trembling with excitement. "Brother Kinyi, I seem to have become different. My body has become especially powerful, and my ears and eyes have become sharp, just like you ancient martial artists. I was just an ordinary person before. How could I suddenly become like this?" Looking at the young girl's surprised and excited expression, Kinyi couldn't help but chuckle and patiently explained. "My cultivation realm is actually land immortal, and the primordial yang in my body contains powerful energy that is by no means comparable to ordinary martial artists. Last night, when you united with me, you absorbed my primordial yang. My primordial yang directly helped you cleanse your marrow and cut your meridians, reshaping your meridian foundation, allowing you to reach the peak of the Haoshan realm overnight and become a true martial artist." Lin Wonking was completely stunned. She hadn't expected that she would break through to the peak of the Haoshan realm overnight, only one step away from the Xianshan realm. Immediately overwhelmed by immense joy, she looked at the man in front of her, her heart full of love and gratitude. Unable to hold back any longer, she reached out to wrap her arms around Kinya's neck, stood on tiptoe, and took the initiative to press her soft lips heavily onto Kinya's, kissing him earnestly and passionately. After a long while, she finally pulled away slightly, her nose touching Kinya's, her eyes moist, her voice soft and affectionate, as she said each word clearly. "Hubby, I love you so much. You not only treat me well, but also helped me become a martial artist. I don't know how I can ever repay you." Chapter 18. The new protagonist Zhao Fan. Hearing Lin Wonking's words filled with gratitude, a hint of sly amusement flashed in Kinya's eyes. He reached out to gently pinch her chin, leaning down slightly, his warm breath brushing against her flushed cheeks. "Then let's see how you plan to repay me tonight." The implication in his words was all too clear. Lin Wonking's cheeks flushed red once again. Her long eyelashes fluttered slightly, and she dared not look Kinyi in the eyes. She nodded her little head gently, her voice as soft as a mosquito's hum, yet filled with complete sincerity. I understand. I will definitely repay Brother Kinyi properly tonight and make you satisfied." The young girl was shy and delicate, her eyes filled with obedience. Seeing this, Kinya's heart softened, and he couldn't help but plant a gentle kiss on her smooth forehead. After the two of them cuddled in the living room for a while longer, Lin Wonking sat up and said to Kinyi, "Brother Kinyi, I'm heading back to the Lin family first. I'll go back to pack my things, then tell Grandpa, Mom, and Dad about us. I'll move in directly tonight and never be separated from you again." Lin Wonking gripped Kinya's hand and shook it, her eyes filled with anticipation for their life of living together. Kinyi smiled and ruffled her hair, his tone gentle and doting. "Okay, drive slowly on the way and be careful. If you have a lot of things, just call me and I'll go pick you up." "Got it." Lin Wonking stood on her tiptoes and quickly pecked Kinyi on the lips. Blushing, she turned around and walked towards the door with light steps. Before leaving, she didn't forget to turn back and wave at Kinyi, her eyes filled with love. Watching Lin Wonking's figure disappear completely at the doorway, the smile on Kinyi's face gradually faded. His gaze returned to its usual calm and cold composure. Thinking of the financial news he had seen while scrolling through videos last night, that mysterious tycoon who had suddenly emerged was definitely no coincidence. He walked slowly to the landline in the living room and pressed the internal extension number. The phone rang only once before a respectful and steady voice came from the other end. "Young master, do you have any instructions?" On the other end of the line was Uncle Fu, who held all the intelligence networks of the Qin family in High City. Whenever there was any disturbance in High City, he could get to the bottom of it in a short time. "Uncle Fu, help me investigate something. Within an hour, I want to know everything about that mysterious tycoon who anonymously acquired 51% of the shares of Xingtu Technology Group in yesterday's financial news. I want all detailed identity information, background, and experiences. Every little detail about that person must be investigated clearly. After you're done, come to the study and hand the information to me." Qin Yi's voice was calm, yet carried an unquestionable directive. "Yes, young master. I will handle it immediately and guarantee that the information will be delivered to you within an hour." Uncle Fu did not hesitate in the slightest. After respectfully acknowledging the order, he immediately hung up the phone and began to organize the investigation. Qin Yi turned and walked up to the study on the second floor. He sat behind the large sandalwood desk, tapping his fingertips lightly on the table, quickly organizing the clues in his mind. This mysterious tycoon who had suddenly appeared and made a name for himself completely fit the routine of a child of destiny. The Qin family's intelligence network was indeed well-deserved of its reputation. Less than an hour later, the study door was gently knocked. Uncle Fu walked in respectfully, holding a thick stack of paper documents and an encrypted tablet. He walked quickly to the desk, placed the documents gently in front of Qin Yi, and bowed. "Young master, the information you requested has been fully investigated. It contains all his personal information, work history, sources of wealth, and recent whereabouts. The electronic version contains more detailed fund flow and background check records. Everything has been verified, and there is no forgery." Qin Yi nodded slightly and raised his hand to signal for Uncle Fu to withdraw. He then picked up the documents on the table and slowly began to flip through them, his sharp gaze sweeping over every line of text, not letting any detail escape him. The data showed that this mysterious tycoon was named Zhao Fan, 25 years old with a junior college degree. He came from an ordinary family in a remote rural area near High City. His parents were honest farmers, and his family background was average, with absolutely no connections to speak of. After graduating from junior college, Zhao Fan had changed jobs 5 or 6 times, working as a telephone customer service representative, real estate salesperson, factory worker, and convenience store clerk. He couldn't hold down any job for long. His income was always meager, and he could barely afford to feed himself. Half a year ago, unable to find a suitable job, Zhao Fan started delivering food in High City to earn extra money. He worked from dawn till dusk, braving the wind and sun, diligently delivering orders. Yet even so, his monthly income was only enough to maintain a basic living, with very little savings. The turning point was 5 days ago. Zhao Fan's girlfriend of 2 whole years, despising him for not being able to earn money, having a poor family background, and not being able to give her the life she wanted, broke up with him on the spot. She immediately cheated on him with a rich second-generation heir who drove a luxury car, mocking Zhao Fan to the extreme. On the day of the breakup, Zhao Fan was disheartened and was squatting by the side of the road in a daze when he suddenly received a call from an international law firm overseas. The other party claimed that Zhao Fan had a distant relative abroad who had lived their whole life without children and had recently passed away unexpectedly. They had left a will bequeathing their entire estate of 1 billion to Zhao Fan for free. All property transfer procedures and legal documents were complete, entirely legal and compliant, without any loopholes, and all taxes had been paid in full. Even more bizarrely, after inheriting the huge fortune, Zhao Fan did not squander or enjoy it like other nouveau rich. Instead, he continued to deliver food every day as usual, his routine unchanged from before. He still rode his old electric scooter, shuttling through the streets and alleys of High City. No one could tell that he was already a top tycoon with a net worth of $1 billion. And the day before yesterday, which was the same day that Chu Men and King Yuanzi died, Xingtu Technology Group gifted 51% of its shares to Zhao Fan for free. To avoid a sensation, they released the news under the guise of an acquisition. After finishing all the documents, Qin Yi slowly put down the papers in his hand. A hint of understanding flashed in his eyes. Tapping his fingertips lightly on the desk, he had already reached a conclusion in his heart. This Zhao Fan had an ordinary family background, average education, and a disastrous career. 5 days ago, he was still at a low point in his life, abandoned by his girlfriend. Within just a few days, he first inherited a huge fortune from overseas, and then received the majority of shares of a top technology group for free. All sources of wealth seemed legal but were actually completely illogical. Yet, they arrived at just the right time. It was the typical characteristic of a child of destiny, exploding luck, heaven-sent opportunities, turning disasters into blessings, and wealth easily within reach. Moreover, after inheriting $1 billion in assets, he still insisted on delivering food. According to the settings of web novels from his previous life, Qin Yi immediately concluded. Zhao Fan's luck boost must be tied to delivering food. It is highly likely that he also has an exclusive system, most likely a food delivery tycoon-type system. Every time he delivers an order, he can obtain cash rewards, asset gifts, skill upgrades, and other benefits. This is also the fundamental reason why he could become rich overnight and obtain Xingtu Group shares out of thin air. Another child of destiny, and a tycoon type at that. This is actually easier to deal with than that guy Chu Men. Qin Yi muttered to himself. Tycoon-type protagonists only have growth in wealth and ordinary skills in the early stages. They have not yet come into contact with extraordinary powers. This Zhao Fan is clearly still in the early stages, his wings not yet fully grown. Dealing with him should be easy. Chapter 19 Takeout Tycoon System. Qin Yi gently placed the document he had finished reading on the desk, his fingertips tracing the information about Zhao Fan on the paper, a hint of amusement flashing in his eyes. Having read countless web novels in his past life, he was all too familiar with the tropes of systems. Systems like this, which were bound by tasks, usually had rules. Completing tasks brought rewards from the sky, while failing them resulted in corresponding punishments. The lighter ones involved deducting earned rewards or reverting attributes, while the heavier ones could even result in being erased by the system. However, some systems had no penalties for failed tasks, which was the reason Qin Yi needed to test it first. Perfect. I'll test it myself to see if this takeout tycoon system has penalties for late deliveries, and if so, how severe they are, Qin Yi murmured to himself, already having a plan in mind. Thinking of this, Qin Yi pressed the call button in the study. Moments later, a guard dressed in black with a tall and sturdy posture walked in quickly. He stood straight and bowed his head respectfully. "Young master, what are your orders?" Open the food delivery app now and specify the writer as Zhao Fan. Make sure the order is delivered to him, and do not make any mistakes. Qin Yi's tone was calm, but his words carried an unquestionable command. The guard was slightly taken aback upon hearing this, a flicker of imperceptible doubt flashing in his eyes. The young master asking him to order food, and specifically designating a delivery rider named Zhao Fan, was truly abnormal. But he knew well that the young master's orders were to be executed, not questioned. Even with doubt in his heart, he didn't hesitate at all and immediately bowed in response. "Yes, young master, I will handle it immediately." The guard quickly exited the study and immediately took out his phone to open the Meituan delivery app. Following Qin Yi's request, he selected a fast food restaurant and placed an order for a home-style stir-fry combo. He specifically designated Zhao Fan as the delivery rider in the app, then submitted the order and completed the payment. The whole process took no more than 2 minutes. He then reported to Qin Yi inside the study. "Young master, the order has been submitted. I've designated that Zhao Fan for delivery, and the platform has already started dispatching the order. Very good, you may leave. Report any updates on the order to me at any time. Qin Yi waved his hand, then his figure flashed and he instantly left the study. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the Cloud Top Club, the most top-tier private club in the center of High City, Zhao Fan strolled slowly out of the lobby. Sunlight spilled onto him, and his whole person exuded a sense of ease and self-satisfaction that was completely out of place with the surrounding environment. Zhao Fan was no longer the poor delivery rider from 5 days ago. He was wearing a slightly faded Meituan delivery uniform, with some inconspicuous stains on the dark blue fabric. On his feet were a pair of worn-out old sneakers. Beside him was the second-hand electric scooter he had been riding for a year, its battery somewhat aged. No matter how you looked at it, he was just an ordinary person struggling at the bottom of society. But if someone who knew him looked closely, they would discover his enormous change. The skin that had become sallow and rough from long-term exposure to wind and sun had become much fairer and smoother. His once plain and mediocre facial features now had soft and defined contours, and there was more spirit in his brows and eyes. His appearance had improved by at least 2 levels. His back, which used to be slightly hunched, was now straight. The self-abasement and embarrassment in his eyes were gone, replaced by an unconcealable confidence and smugness. There was even a hint of floating superiority. Even while wearing the delivery uniform, he carried an air of looking down on others. Zhao Fan stood at the entrance of the club, looked back at the luxuriously decorated, golden building, and couldn't help but take a deep breath. His eyes were filled with awe and satisfaction, and the corners of his mouth lifted uncontrollably. This is the life of the rich, huh? Entering top-tier clubs at will, eating delicacies at will, even the service is done on their knees. This is a life I didn't even dare to imagine before, and now I'm actually living it. Just 5 days ago, he was still a poor loser who had been cheated on by his girlfriend and humiliated in public. His girlfriend disliked that he delivered food with no future and would never be able to turn his life around, so she left with a rich second-generation heir driving a BMW without hesitation. Before leaving, she scolded him, saying he was mud that couldn't be plastered onto a wall. He still remembered those humiliating words clearly to this day. But it was precisely at his most desperate moment, when he was on the verge of a breakdown, that a system prompt suddenly rang in his mind. He had successfully bound the takeout tycoon system, and from then on, his life had completely changed against the odds. The system rules were extremely simple. As long as he completed food delivery orders on time every day, and as long as the orders were not late, he could randomly receive rewards. There were no complex tasks or harsh requirements. Just delivering every order well was enough to receive rewards. However, along with the rewards, there were punishments. If he exceeded the delivery time 5 times in a row, he would be erased by the system. At the time, seeing this punishment gave Zhao Fan a shock, but after thinking about it, he had been delivering food for so long, and the number of times he had been late could be counted on one hand. It was even more impossible for him to be late 5 times in a row. Thinking of this, Zhao Fan felt excited. Having obtained the system, he must be the destined child of fate in a novel. Over the past 5 days, every time he delivered an order, rewards followed one after another. So many that he felt like he was having a beautiful dream he didn't dare to wake up from. On the first day after delivering food, the system directly rewarded him with appearance optimization and mastery of speech, turning him from a mediocre, loser-looking man into someone fresh and pleasant to look at, and making his communication with others calm and fluent. On the second day after delivering food, the system directly deposited 1 billion in cash, claiming it was an inheritance from an overseas relative. Looking at the numbers in his bank account made his hands shake in disbelief. And just the day before yesterday, after he finished his last delivery, the system waved its hand and directly rewarded him with 51% of the shares of Star Path Technology Group. Overnight, he became the most mysterious rich man in High City. From a poor delivery boy who could barely pay his rent and was trampled on by others at will, to a big shot with a net worth of 1 billion and control over a top-tier technology group, He had only used 5 days. All these changes were just because he persisted in delivering food and completed the system tasks without being late. What struggle and hard work, what starting from scratch in front of the system, it's all just floating clouds. Zhao Fan clenched his fists, feeling the surging confidence within him, shouting crazily in his heart, his eyes filled with an arrogant look of disdain for everything. I used to be a poor loser who could be bullied by everyone. Now that I have the system's support, I can get everything just by delivering food. I am the born child of destiny. Everything in this world will belong to me sooner or later. He had even started to imagine that, as he continued to deliver food, the system would reward him with even more top-tier assets and more powerful abilities. In the future, the entire high city, the entire China, and even the whole world would submit to him, and those who once looked down on him would have to look up to him. Just as Zhao Fan was filled with daydreams and high spirits, the new mobile phone he had just bought, hanging on the handlebar of his electric scooter, suddenly sounded a crisp delivery order notification. Immediately following that, a mechanical system voice that only he could hear rang in his mind. Ding detected a new exclusive delivery order. Delivery address, Kin Family. Pickup address, Chengxi Shengxin Homestyle Restaurant. Delivery time limit, 40 minutes. The order has designated you as the rider. Do you accept the order immediately? Zhao Fan did not hesitate at all. His fingertips tapped the accept order button on the screen quickly, while he silently chanted in his heart, accept order. It's just a food delivery, 40 minutes is enough. After completing this order, I wonder what good rewards the system will give again. He nimbly hopped onto his second-hand motorcycle and twisted the throttle. The engine emitted a burst of old, rumbling sounds as he sped toward the restaurant to pick up the meal, his heart full of anticipation for the next reward, completely unaware that this seemingly ordinary food order was already a probing chess game set up by someone else. Chapter 20, Delivery Failure. Zhao Fan rode his rattling, second-hand motorbike, hurrying all the way to the Shengxin Homestyle Restaurant in the west of the city. After parking steadily, he walked quickly into the shop, nimbly reported the pickup number to the owner, received the packed stir-fry set meal, and hung it on the delivery hook on the handlebars. After confirming everything was correct, Zhao Fan glanced at the delivery countdown on his phone. There were still 32 minutes left. It was 7 kilometers from the restaurant to the Kin family, and at his motorbike speed, even with some minor traffic, he had plenty of time. He straddled his motorbike and twisted the throttle. The old engine emitted a put-put-put roaring sound as he sped off in the direction of the Kin family. The afternoon streets weren't very congested. With a breeze brushing against his cheeks, Zhao Fan's mood became increasingly cheerful. He even hummed a little tune unconsciously, his mind filled with fantasies about the system's rewards. If this order were completed successfully, the system might reward him with a luxury car, or add another huge deposit to his account, or perhaps even give him a top-tier industry. After all, the previous designated order had rewarded him with shares in the Starry Sky Group. This was also a designated order, so the reward definitely wouldn't be bad. The more he thought, the more he got carried away, and his speed unconsciously increased a bit. Meanwhile, Qinyi had already calculated Zhao Fan's route and arrived early at a quiet corner leading to the Qin family. The road here was narrow, flanked by old residential buildings, and traffic was sparse, the perfect location to make a move. Qinyi stood under the shade of a tree by the roadside with his hands behind his back. His aura was restrained, blending perfectly with the surrounding environment. Passers-by wouldn't even notice his presence. He slowly closed his eyes, his spiritual sense spreading out like an invisible net, covering a radius of 1 kilometer. In an instant, an aura appeared within his spiritual perception. It was Zhao Fan, wearing a deep blue delivery uniform and speeding over on his second-hand motorbike. Qinyi precisely locked onto his aura and predicted his trajectory. With a slight concentration of his fingertips, a wisp of true qi, so faint it was nearly transparent, quietly seeped out and attached itself silently to the road surface at the corner. He had specially marked this true chi. It would only trigger when it detected Zhao Fan's aura and would have absolutely no effect on other passing vehicles or pedestrians. After finishing all this, Qin Yi flashed away, leaving silently. The road remained as it always was, as if there had never been any anomaly. Not long after, Zhao Fan rode his motorbike to this corner. At this moment, he was still immersed in fantasies about the system's rewards, his eyes unfocused, not noticing the anomaly on the road ahead at all. He habitually turned the handlebars slightly, preparing to ride steadily around the corner. Just as the front wheel of the motorbike rolled over the patch of road surface attached with true chi, a sudden change occurred. An invisible but powerful lateral force suddenly acted on the motorbike's handlebars without any warning. There was no sound, no visible collision, just as if an invisible hand had suddenly pushed the handlebars from the side. The smile on Zhao Fan's face instantly froze, his pupils constricted sharply, and his hands subconsciously gripped the handlebars tightly, trying to stabilize it. But the force came so fast and fierce, and coupled with the motorbike's not-slow speed, the huge inertia instantly broke his control. The handlebars went completely out of control and swerved violently to one side. What's going on? That was the only thought that flashed through Zhao Fan's mind. Before he could even cry out in alarm, he and the motorbike were flung heavily away. His body experienced a brief moment of weightlessness in the air, followed immediately by his elbows and knees slamming into the rough concrete ground. The intense friction instantly tore his skin, and a burning pain swept through his entire body. Excruciating pain also radiated from his arms and legs. He slid several meters on the ground before stopping. The second-hand motorbike fell on its side, slamming heavily onto the roadside. The delivery meal box in the front basket flew out, hitting the ground with a clatter. The lid of the box instantly cracked, and the food and soup inside spilled all over the ground. The white rice mixed with vegetable juices spread across the road, a complete mess. Zhao Fan endured the intense pain in his body and gritted his teeth as he climbed up from the ground. The knees of his pants were worn through, blood was seeping from the skin on his elbows, and he was covered in dust from head to toe, looking utterly wretched. He couldn't care about wiping the dust off his body, nor could he tend to his wounds. He stumbled over to where the delivery food had spilled. Looking at the mess on the ground, his face instantly turned pale. Annoyance, regret, and confusion flooded his mind. He kicked the ground hard and muttered angrily to himself. How could this happen? I was riding perfectly fine, so why did the steering suddenly become unstable? It was like someone gave it a hard push from the side. How could something like this happen out of nowhere? He squatted on the ground, watching the spilled delivery food, his mind in a state of panic. If he couldn't deliver this order, not only would he not get the reward, but most importantly, he would be punished by the system. Right, the system rules only required him to deliver the food without being overtime. And this delivery wasn't completely spilled, Zhao Fan thought, trying to comfort himself. He was completely panicked. In his panic, he hurried over to the overturned motorbike and used all his strength to lift it up. He reached out and twisted the throttle, but the motorbike engine only emitted a series of clack-clack-clack sounds, with no sign of starting at all. The exhaust pipe even puffed out wisps of black smoke. Zhao Fan wouldn't give up and twisted the throttle several more times, but the motorbike still didn't react. He squatted down to check carefully, only to discover that the motorbike's engine casing had cracked, the internal parts were severely damaged, and it was completely scrapped. It couldn't be ridden at all. Looking at the motorbike that could no longer start, and then at the little bit of delivery food left on the ground, Zhao Fan could no longer hold it together. He instantly collapsed on the ground, his eyes hollow, his face full of despair. It's over, it's all over. Zhao Fan grabbed his hair with both hands, his eyes filled with despair. The motorbike is broken, the food is spilled, this order is definitely going to be overtime. It's over, completely over. Why am I so unlucky? I was riding perfectly fine the whole way, but I had to have an accident at this corner. The more he thought, the more panicked he became. Before, he had been completely immersed in the joy of fantasizing about system rewards, never thinking about the consequences of failing a task. Now that the order was completely ruined, he feared the unknown punishment the system would inflict. The smooth sailing he had experienced over the past 5 days seemed to have come to an abrupt end at this moment. His past arrogance and smugness vanished, leaving only utter annoyance and helplessness. Chapter 21. Zhao Fan's Naked Run. Zhao Fan sat slumped on the road, the wounds on his body still oozing blood. The stinging pain constantly stimulated his nerves, but he was completely oblivious to it. He replayed that inexplicable push from earlier in his mind over and over, filled with grievance and unwillingness. He had been riding normally, and there was still plenty of time left, yet he had encountered such a bizarre event. But since things had reached this point, no amount of unwillingness would help. Now there was less than 20 minutes left, most of the takeout had spilled, and his injuries hurt with every movement. He could not even walk properly, let alone run. He could only sit slumped on the roadside in despair, waiting for the system's judgment, as time ticked away bit by bit. Finally, the delivery countdown on his phone screen reached 0, and the words "delivery timed out" instantly popped up. Immediately after, a cold, mechanical voice suddenly rang out in Zhao Fan's mind. "Ding, delivery time has ended. This takeout order delivery has failed. Current cumulative failures, 1-5. Triggering failure penalty, host must run naked for 1 hour." What? Zhao Fan's eyes widened sharply, his whole body trembling as if struck by a bolt of lightning. He froze instantly, followed by an eruption of monstrous rage and terror. He roared frantically at the system in his mind, his voice filled with resistance and grievance. "System, you can't do this. I didn't fail the delivery on purpose. It was that strange force that pushed my bike earlier. You saw it too, it was an accident. It's not my fault. I can't run naked, absolutely not." Running naked for an hour. If this got out, how would he ever face anyone again? If the incident of him running naked in the street was exposed, he would instantly become everyone's laughingstock. But no matter how he argued, begged, or even broke down and cursed in his mind, the system's voice remained cold and heartless, without the slightest wavering. System response. Regardless of the reason for the order delivery failure, it is considered an incomplete task. The corresponding penalty must be accepted. There are no exceptions. Detected that the host has strong resistance and is refusing to execute the penalty. To maintain system rules, the mandatory control mechanism is being activated. The system will temporarily take over control of the host's body until the penalty time ends. The moment the words fell, Zhao Fan felt an irresistible force instantly sweep through his entire body. His consciousness was still clear, but all control over his body was stripped away instantly. He could clearly feel his arms lifting, could feel his fingers gripping the hem of his delivery uniform, but none of this was his own will. No matter how frantically he roared or begged in his heart. That force did not loosen in the slightest. Under his gaze, the system manipulated his body with rough and swift movements, stripping off his dark blue delivery uniform, the t-shirt underneath, his pants, and his shoes and socks right there and then, tossing them casually into the roadside bushes. The afternoon wind was slightly chilly due to the weather, causing goosebumps to rise on his exposed skin. But compared to the chill on his body, the bone-deep shame and despair were far greater. Zhao Fan's consciousness desperately closed its eyes, yet he was forced to perceive everything clearly. He wanted to close his eyes, wanted to escape, but he could not do it at all. He could only watch helplessly as his naked body, under the system's control, suddenly strode forward and began to sprint wildly along the street in front of him. No. A heart-wrenching, desperate roar erupted from deep within Zhao Fan's heart, but his throat could not make a sound. He could only let his body run naked through the streets against his will. With every step he ran, his sense of shame increased, and his inner breakdown deepened. He could feel that his life was ruined, and he had become the biggest joke in all of High City. At this moment, there were many pedestrians on the street. Workers riding home after work, parents walking with their children, young men and women shopping together, and shopkeepers watching their stores from the roadside. Just then, a naked young man came sprinting down the street. Everyone froze instantly, followed by bursts of exclamation, and the scene exploded into chaos. My God, who is that? Why is he running naked in the street? How shameless, to do something like this in broad daylight. A middle-aged woman with a child saw this and her expression changed drastically. She quickly covered the child's eyes and pulled them to the side, scolding angrily. Hurry, hurry! What kind of person is this? It's so indecent, don't let it scare the child. A few young men passing by were stunned at first, then quickly took out their phones, opened the camera function, and chased after him to film. They had mocking smiles on their faces, joking with their companions as they filmed. Quick, film it! This is big news, it'll definitely go viral online. An elderly man running a roadside stall shook his head and sighed as he watched Zhao fans sprinting back. The world is really going downhill. The human heart is not what it used to be. How can young people today do such shameful things? Such a perfectly fine young man, how can he be so shameless? A middle-aged man passing by frowned, took out his phone, and muttered while filming. This guy must have mental problems, otherwise who would do something like this? It's a terrible eyesore. In just a few minutes, the video of Zhao Fan's naked run was filmed by passers-by and posted to Moments, short video platforms, and local community groups, accompanied by captions like, Naked man appears on the streets of High City, sprinting in public without any shame. There were many such titles, and it spread rapidly, its popularity rising sharply. Zhao Fan's reputation was completely destroyed at this moment, and he became the laughingstock of the entire city. Not far away, behind a large tree, Qin Yi stood silently, taking it all in. A blue light screen appeared in his eyes. Name Zhao Fan. Gender, male. Height, 175 cm. Weight, 70 kg. Appearance, 85. Realm, Nun Combat Mastery. Fate, Takeout Child of Destiny, Earth. His spiritual sense locked onto Zhao Fan the entire time, from the moment the system penalty was issued, to Zhao Fan being forcibly controlled into a naked run, to the onlookers filming. He saw every detail clearly. Watching Zhao Fan's disheveled and utterly disgraced appearance, a profound smile curled at the corners of Qin Yi's lips. This test was a double success. Not only did he completely figure out Zhao Fan's system mechanism, task failure triggers a penalty without reason, the penalty is harsh and merciless, and the host cannot resist and must passively execute it. It also happened to make Zhao Fan embarrass himself in public, directly destroying the sense of superiority he had just built up, and severely crushing his spirit. This child of destiny is just like this, not even able to fully control his own body. He's nothing but a puppet of the system. Qin Yi muttered to himself, his tone filled with disdain. Confirming there were no other details worth observing, his true chi faintly appeared around him. In just an instant, he disappeared from the street corner. The next second, he was already sitting securely in the study of the Qin family old residence, as if he had never left, without a speck of dust from the outside world on him. He picked up the clear tea on the table and took a sip. The study door was lightly knocked, and then the guard who had been responsible for ordering the takeout walked in quickly. He bowed to Qin Yi, apologizing sincerely. Young master, I am sorry. I failed to handle the matter well. The takeout you requested had an unexpected accident on the way. The food was damaged, and it couldn't be delivered, so it had to be canceled. The guard was nervous, feeling that he hadn't even handled this small matter well, and was afraid Qin Yi would be angry. But Qin Yi only raised his eyes lightly, his expression calm and waveless, looking completely unconcerned. He waved his hand lightly, his tone indifferent. It doesn't matter. It was just a takeout order. If it wasn't delivered, it wasn't delivered. Don't take it to heart. He hadn't ordered the takeout to eat in the first place. The goal of testing the system had already been achieved. The loss of a single takeout order was not worth mentioning. Hearing this, the guard's suspended heart instantly dropped, and he bowed respectfully again. "Thank you for your magnanimity, young master. I will definitely be more careful in the future." "You may leave," Kin Yi commanded lightly, without saying anything more, and continued to hold his clear tea, calculating how to deal with this child of destiny next. Chapter 22, Cohabitation. As evening approached, the setting sun dyed the horizon a gentle orange red, and the afterglow spilled into the courtyard, as if coating it in a layer of warm light. At this moment, a Porsche 911 slowly drove through the gates of the Kin family and came to a steady stop in front of the villa. The car door opened, and Lin Wongking stepped out, carrying several exquisite suitcases. She had changed into a light pink casual dress, and her long hair flowed smoothly over her shoulders. Her eyes were filled with anticipation and joy. The moment she stepped out of the car, she caught sight of Kin Yi waiting at the villa entrance. Her eyes instantly lit up, and completely forgetting the luggage in her hands, she ran quickly towards Kin Yi. She threw herself into Kin Yi's arms, wrapping her arms tightly around his shoulders. Her soft body pressed closely against him, and she buried her little head in the crook of his neck, her voice soft and sweet, tinged with a hint of longing. "Brother Kin Yi, I missed you so much." Feeling the girl's soft body pressed against him, and the warmth of her breath seeping through his clothes, the tone full of reliance made Kin Yi's heart soften instantly. He reached out to gently wrap his arm around her waist, his tone filled with helpless indulgence. He lightly flicked her nose with his right hand. All right, we've only been apart for a few hours. Why do you miss me so much already?" "I just miss you. I start missing you the moment I can't see you." Lin Wongking rubbed against him in his arms like a clingy little kitten, her tone full of coquettishness. "Even if we're only apart for a little while, it feels like forever. I want to be with Brother Kin Yi every single moment." Watching the love and naive innocence in the girl's eyes, Kin Yi couldn't help but chuckle softly. He stopped teasing her, reached out to take the suitcases from her hands, and gently took her hand. "All right, let's go inside first. I've already instructed the servants to get your bedroom ready. It's right next to mine, a room exclusively for you. The decor is all based on your preferences, see if you're satisfied with it." Led by Kin Yi into the villa, Lin Wongking felt full of warmth, smiling at him the entire way. The servants were already waiting on the side. They took the luggage from Kin Yi's hands and followed the two of them upstairs. Kin Yi pushed open the door to the adjacent bedroom, revealing a warm and elegant room. The overall theme was a gentle, light color palette. A soft princess bed was covered with clean bedding, an exquisite vanity table was placed by the window, and the wardrobe was already stocked with various types of clothing. The desk and decorations were all in the style that Lin Wongking usually liked. Every detail showed care and effort. "Wow, it's so beautiful." Lin Wongking's eyes lit up instantly. She walked quickly into the room, touching this and looking at that, her heart full of joy. Kin Yi then instructed the servants to arrange the clothes, skincare products, and other small items Lin Wongking had brought according to her wishes, so she wouldn't have to do it herself. Lin Wongking leaned against Kin Yi, watching the servants tidy up in an orderly fashion. Her heart was filled with happiness. Brother Kin Yi is the best person in the world to me. Unknowingly, the sky had completely darkened and night had fallen. The servants had already prepared a sumptuous dinner, and the two sat in the dining room, enjoying a warm and cozy meal. After dinner, the two sat on the sofa in the living room to rest. Lin Wongking nestled in Kin Yi's arms, casually picking up her phone to scroll through short videos. As she watched, she suddenly became interested. She looked up at Kin Yi, her eyes sparkling, and asked with curiosity and gossip in her tone, "Brother Kin Yi, have you seen today's latest trending search? It's absolutely hilarious." Hearing the words, trending search, Kin Yi knew what it was about. He looked down at her lively appearance, his fingertips gently stroking her long hair, and feigned confusion. "Oh, what trending search has gotten you so interested?" "It's just that this afternoon, a naked man suddenly appeared on the streets of High City, running around wildly. Many passersby filmed it, and the video has gone viral. Lin Wonking said excitedly, even holding her phone out to Kinyi to show him the video on the trending search. Look, passersby are cursing him for being shameless. Later, the police rushed over to try and stop him, but this person ran extremely fast, weaving back and forth through the streets and alleys. He was very agile, and the police couldn't catch up with him for a while. Now the whole internet is following the aftermath of this incident, all guessing who this person is and why he was running around the streets naked. Chinyi glanced at the figure running in a sorry state in the video. It was Zhao Fan, who had been punished by the system. A faint, imperceptible smile curled the corner of his lips, as he naturally understood the ins and outs of the whole matter. But he had no intention of telling Lin Wonking the truth. This incident was merely a small tactic of his to test the child of destiny, so there was no need for her to know. He just feigned ignorance, shook his head slightly, and said in a calm tone, "Doing such a thing in broad daylight is indeed too dissolute and completely shameless. There is no need to pay attention to such absurd matters." Lin Wonking nodded in agreement, put away her phone, and leaned back against Kinya's shoulder. She spoke of the main matter in a light tone. "Oh, right, Brother Kinyi, after I went home, I told Grandpa and Mom and Dad about us, and also about the evil deeds of the Chu men. They all support us being together, not opposing it at all. And when they heard that the Chu men harbored evil intentions and went to intercept and kill you, only to end up in such a state, my family was extremely angry. Grandpa even angrily denounced the Chu men for having an improper mind, saying how could Grandmaster King Yuanzi have taught such a bastard of a disciple, and said it was entirely his own doing that he couldn't live. He told me to stay by your side with peace of mind from now on and not to worry about anything." Learning that the entire Lin family supported them and held the Chu men's actions in contempt, Kinyi didn't think too much about it. After all, as long as Lin Wonking had moved in, that was all that mattered. Chinyi reached out again to rub the top of Lin Wonking's head, his tone calm yet heartwarming. "That's good. With your family's support, you can be more at ease." The two snuggled and chatted for a while longer. The night grew darker, and the streetlights outside lit up one by one. The warm light of the Kin family living room shone on them, full of coziness. Chinyi looked at the pretty girl beside him and asked softly, "It's still early, not time to rest yet. Is there anything we want to do tonight?" Lin Wonking's eyes darted around. She looked up at Kinyi, her eyes filled with anticipation, and said coquettishly, "I want Brother Kinyi to accompany me shopping. We haven't gone shopping together in a long time. Let's go to the night market, see the bustle, and buy some little trinkets, okay?" Looking at the girl's expectant expression, how could Kinyi refuse? He indulgently rubbed her little face and readily agreed. "No problem. If you want to go shopping, we'll go. As long as you're happy, I'll accompany you wherever you want to go." Lin Wonking instantly beamed with joy, leaned over, and planted a soft kiss on Kinya's cheek, saying happily, "Brother Kinyi is the best. I'll go change into some comfortable clothes right now, and we'll leave immediately." After saying that, she got up quickly and ran towards her bedroom. Chapter 23, Shopping with Lin Wonking. A moment later, Lin Wonking walked out of the bedroom. She was wearing a goose-yellow chiffon camisole dress, paired with a light knit cardigan and white strappy sandals. Her long hair was loosely tied in a bun, revealing her slender, fair, swan-like neck. She looked fresh and lively, her steps light, bringing with her a cool breeze. "Brother Kinyi, let's go." Lin Wonking walked up to Kinyi, her little face beaming with a smile, and naturally took his arm. The two walked out of the villa side by side and arrived at the courtyard gate. The driver had already received instructions and had the black Rolls-Royce Phantom parked steadily in front of the gate. The car door opened automatically, and the leather seats inside gleamed with a delicate luster. Chinyi first opened the passenger door for Lin Wonking, helped her in, then walked around to the driver's seat and started the engine. The car let out a low roar and slowly drove out of the Kin family residence. The ride was smooth, and they soon entered the commercial district of High City. A magnificent complex of buildings appeared ahead, with towering skyscrapers and neon lights just beginning to flicker. This was High City's premier commercial landmark, the Galaxy International Plaza. This was the exclusive territory of the wealthy elite in High City, a gathering place for wealth. Almost all the world's top luxury brand flagship stores were gathered here, with prices often reaching 5, 6, or even 7 figures, making it inaccessible to the average person. Surrounding the plaza were office buildings, high-end clubs, and five-star hotels, truly living up to the term gilded and magnificent. It was not only the ceiling of consumerism, but also a symbol of High City's wealth and fashion. The car parked in an exclusive VIP spot next to the main entrance of the plaza. Qin Yi got out, gentlemanly opened the door for Lin Wongqing, and helped her out. The two walked hand in hand into a large shopping mall inside the plaza called Yuhui. This mall was actually a property under the name of Qin Yi's mother, Su Qinglin. Given Qin Yi's status, he could make all operational and decision-making calls for the entire mall, making it almost like his own private asset. The brands and services inside were all of the top tier. The two walked straight into an international high-end women's boutique. The interior decor was elegant, the lighting soft, and every garment exuded refinement and luxury. As soon as they entered, the sales associate keenly sensed the temperament of the pair. Qin Yi had a calm and cold aura. Despite wearing simple casual clothes, he could not hide the dignity of a person in a high position. Lin Wongqing was pure and refined, her every gesture showing the elegance of a young lady from a prominent family. It was clear at a glance that she had an extraordinary background. The sales associate immediately put on a warm and attentive smile, walked up quickly, bowed slightly, and said in a sweet voice, "Welcome, you two. Is there anything you would like to see? Let me introduce some items to you." Qin Yi's gaze swept over the dazzling array of clothes in the store. Without much small talk, he simply said calmly, "Bring out your newest arrivals or the most expensive women's clothing you have for us to look at." The sales associate was immediately delighted, her smile becoming even more radiant as she secretly calculated the commission for this sale. She quickly took a finale-piece dress from the display rack, held it in both hands, and presented it to Lin Wongqing, enthusiastically introducing it. "Miss Lin, this is a limited edition dress that just arrived at our store. It uses imported silk jacquard fabric, and the embroidery on it is purely custom-made by hand, specifically designed for Chinese women. The waist-cinching effect is particularly good. It can perfectly modify your body proportions and makes you look very elegant when worn." It was a pale purple silk camisole maxi dress, with delicate silver vine patterns embroidered on the skirt, shimmering with a soft luster under the lights. The waist was tapered, perfectly outlining a slender waistline. The hem flared slightly, swaying gracefully as one walked, making it both elegant and lively. Lin Wongqing took the dress and held it against herself. Her eyes lit up instantly, feeling that this dress was tailor-made for her, so she turned to Qin Yi and said, "I quite like this one. Brother Qin Yi, may I try it on?" "Of course you can." Qin Yi looked at her dotingly. The sales associate quickly took Lin Wongqing to the fitting room. Not long after, the door of the fitting room was pushed open, and Lin Wongqing slowly walked out. At this moment, she had shed her usual coldness and added a touch of vibrant beauty. The pale purple silk dress made her skin look as fair as snow. The camisole design revealed her delicate collarbones and slender shoulders and neck, while the waist-cinching cut perfectly showcased her graceful curves. The skirt had a wonderful drape, swaying gently with her steps, like a blooming lilac. Her long hair fell over her shoulders, left loose, complementing the pale purple dress. The whole look had both the fresh liveliness of a young girl and the gentle elegance of a mature woman. She walked up to Qin Yi, turned around slightly, hands behind her back, with an expectant and shy smile on her face, and asked softly, "Brother Qin Yi, do I look good in this?" Qin Yi had originally been looking down at his phone, but upon hearing her voice, he immediately looked up. The moment he saw Lin Wonking, a flash of astonishment crossed his eyes. He put down his phone, stood up, his gaze locked tightly on her, his voice filled with sincere admiration. "Wonking, you are truly beautiful. This dress is practically tailor-made for you. It especially complements your temperament." Receiving Kinya's affirmation, Lin Wonking's cheeks instantly flushed crimson, and her heart felt sweet, as if she had just drunk honey. "We'll take this one," Kinyi said to the sales associate, without the slightest hesitation in his tone. The sales associate quickly responded with a smile. "Very well, sir. The price of this dress is 88,000 yuan. 88,000 was undoubtedly a huge sum for an ordinary family, but for Kinyi, it was merely a drop in the bucket. Without even knitting his brows, he took a black card from his pocket, handed it to the sales associate, and said calmly, "Swipe the card." The sales associate took the card, overjoyed, and quickly walked to the cashier, skillfully completing the payment process. The whole process was smooth and seamless, without any glitches. The transaction was completed quickly. The sales associate returned the card to Kinyi with both hands, a professional and enthusiastic smile on her face. "Sir, here is your card. I will prepare the receipt and shopping bag for you right away." Kinyi took the card, casually slipped it back into his pocket, then walked over to Lin Wonking, naturally took her hand, and said softly, "Let's go." Lin Wonking nodded and squeezed his hand tightly in return. The two walked side by side, happily exiting the women's clothing store, and continued to stroll through the mall. Chapter 24, Real and Fake Heiresses. Chinyi held Lin Wonking's hand, carrying the gift box containing the dress they had just bought, and walked slowly out of the women's clothing store. The light from the mall spilled over them, and the atmosphere remained sweet. Lin Wonking caught a glimpse of a luxuriously decorated jewelry store not far away, a flash of curiosity in her eyes. Seeing this, Kinyi followed her wishes and led her toward that jewelry store. The decor of this jewelry store was top-tier throughout High City. Inside, the crystal chandelier shimmered brilliantly, and the jewelry in the display cases sparkled under the lights. The air seemed to be permeated with an aura of luxury. The sales associate in the store, just like the one at the clothing store, saw at a glance that Kinyi and Lin Wonking possessed an extraordinary air and must be wealthy or noble. She immediately approached them with a fawning, enthusiastic expression, led them to the main display case, and introduced with a smile. "To guests, the jewelry in our store is all of the finest quality. We have necklaces inlaid with pigeon blood rubies, bracelets carved from ice-type jadeite, as well as diamond earrings and pearl sets. Our styles are complete." Chinyi and Lin Wonking were listening quietly to the sales associate's introduction, when, suddenly, a shrill and mean-spirited sarcastic voice came from a corner, instantly shattering the peace in the store. People around also cast their gazes over. They saw a woman wearing a high-end Chanel-style suit, with vibrant makeup but an arrogant face, standing with her hands on her hips and speaking with disdain to the sales associate beside her. This woman making the sarcastic remarks was second Miss Zhu of the High City Zhu family. She was decked out in designer brands, and though her makeup was exquisite, it could not hide the overbearing look in her eyes and brows. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to infinite novel audiobooks. The sales associate she was mocking was named Zhu Zuyao. She was wearing a simple work uniform and was bare-faced, yet she had beautiful features and a gentle, clean temperament. Her appearance and the innate clarity of her character were actually superior to the designer-clad second Miss Zhou. Facing second Miss Zhou's sarcasm, Zhu Zuyao's expression was calm, her gaze indifferent. She showed no anger, as if she had long been accustomed to such verbal abuse. This calmness completely infuriated the already arrogant second Miss Zhou. She took a step forward, raised her voice, and sternly rebuked. "Zhou Zuyao, who are you pretending to be aloof for? People like you from the bottom of society only deserve to do this kind of menial work, and will be looked down upon for your whole life." Zhou Zuyao lifted her eyes and looked coldly at second Miss Zhou, without the slightest fear. she retorted, word for word with resonance. Second Miss Joe, besides relying on your family background to bully others, what else can you do? You are nothing more than a thief who stole my life, and you are utterly useless. This remark seemed to strike a sore spot for Second Miss Joe. Her face instantly flushed red, and she roared in angry embarrassment. You have already left the Zhu family, yet you still dare to speak to me like this. See if I don't teach you a lesson. Before her words had even faded, Second Miss Zhu raised her right hand. The nail art on her nails glinted coldly as she swung heavily toward Zhu Zuyao's cheek with full force, clearly intending to humiliate Zhu Zuyao in public. Zhou Zuyao's eyes sharpened. She did not let herself be bullied, instinctively raising her hand to steadily block the slap. Immediately, she swung her hand back. This strike was powerful and heavy, as if she wanted to return all the grievances she had suffered to the person in front of her. Slap! The crisp sound of the slap was exceptionally loud in the quiet jewelry store. Second Miss Zhu clutched her burning, stinging cheek, staring at Zhu Zuyao in disbelief. A clear slap mark instantly appeared on her face. She was both shocked and furious, her voice so shrill it almost cracked. You dare to hit me, Zhu Zuyao, you lowly bottom feeder, you actually dare to hit me. Zhou Zuyao laughed in extreme anger, her eyes full of disdain and resentment, and spoke coldly. You are allowed to hit me, but I am not allowed to fight back. Second Miss Zhou, you thief who stole my life and usurped my identity for over 20 years. What qualifications do you have to clamor in front of me? This secret of the wealthy family was now exposed in public by Zhu Zuyao, causing those around to sigh with emotion. However, what was even more shocking was that Zhu Zuyao was actually the true heiress of the Zhu family. It turned out that Zhu Zuyao was the true eldest young lady of the Zhu family, while the arrogant and overbearing second Miss Zhu before them was nothing more than an impostor who had usurped the nest. 22 years ago, the two were born in the same hospital. Second Miss Zhou's mother was a nanny for the Zhu family at the time and happened to give birth on the same day as Mrs. Zhou. Second Miss Zhu was born half a day earlier than Zhu Zuyao. The nanny happened to see the newly born Zhu Zuyao, who was as cute as carved jade and born at the pinnacle. She thought to herself how wonderful it would be if she could have been born into such a family. Suddenly, she thought again. I cannot do it, but my daughter can. Thus, she conceived a malicious idea. She secretly bribed a nurse at the hospital and, taking advantage of the confusion in the night, quietly swapped the two newborn bobbies. After the swap, the nanny was afraid the matter would be exposed. After being discharged from the hospital, she secretly sold the true Zhu family heiress, that is, Zhu Zuyao, to an ordinary family. Coincidentally, this family was also surnamed Zhou. Zhu Zuyao's adoptive parents had lost their child early in life and were heartbroken. After buying Zhu Zuyao, they treated her as their own and poured all their love into her. Although her adoptive parents' family background was ordinary and they could not provide Zhu Zuyao with a life of luxury, they gave her all the tenderness and care they could. They let her grow up in an environment full of love, making her gentle and resilient. Her life was happy and fulfilling, and before learning about her true background, she never felt that her life had any regrets. As for second Miss Zhou, who was swapped into the Zhu family by the nanny, she transformed from a nanny's daughter into the star-studded second Miss Zhou. In the 22 years she grew up in the Zhu family, she was spoiled by the Zhu family to the point of lawlessness. She was arrogant, domineering, and looked down on others. She would order the household staff around, and lacked any of the dignity or cultivation of a young lady from a prestigious family, acting in an overbearing and reckless manner. Yet the Zhu family indulged her in every way, feeling there was nothing wrong with it, and continued to dote on her endlessly, fearing she would break if held in their palms or melt if kept in their mouths. This stability lasted for a full 22 years, only to be broken 3 months ago. During a routine physical examination for second Miss Zhou, the housekeeper accidentally discovered that her blood type did not match the Zhou father and mother at all. Suspicious, he immediately informed the Zhou father and mother. While shocked, the Zhu family hurriedly conducted a secret paternity test, and the results showed that second Miss Zhu was indeed not their biological daughter. The anxious Zhu family immediately utilized all their connections and power to search for their biological daughter everywhere. After a week of investigation and verification, they finally found Zhu Zuyao, who had just graduated from university and was looking for a job. After the reunion, Zhu Zuyao's background was completely exposed. However, even though the Zhu family had found their biological daughter, because of their 20-plus years of feelings for second Miss Zhou, they continued to favor second Miss Zhou. They even felt that Zhu Zuyao's appearance had broken the original peace and were very cold toward this biological daughter. Second Miss Zhou, relying on the Zhu family's favoritism, made things difficult for Zhu Zuyao at every turn. Later, unable to stand the Zhu family's double standards, Zhu Zuyao moved out of the Zhu family on her own. Qin Yi stood to the side with calm eyes. His gaze swept indifferently over the unruly second Miss Zhou, then looked at the stubborn-eyed Zhu Zuyao. His expression did not have much fluctuation, but he had already taken in this scene and had some thoughts in his heart. Chapter 25. The True Heiress's Resilience. System, pull up the profiles for Zhu Zuyao and second Miss Zhou. Qin Yi silently intoned in his mind. 2 blue screens instantly appeared before his eyes, each displaying a name. The first one was Zhu Zuyao. Name: Zhu Zuyao. Gender: female. Height: 170 cm. Weight: 48 kg. Appearance: 92. Realm: none. Fate: true heiress of a wealthy family, heroine of the food delivery tycoon, resilient and gentle, independent and strong. Qin Yi shifted his gaze to the right, and the name on the screen changed. Name: second Miss Zhu. Gender: female. Height: 167 cm. Weight: 45 kg. Appearance: 82. Realm: none. Fate: fake heiress of a wealthy family, usurper, arrogant and domineering, selfish and self-serving. He couldn't help but think to himself, this is truly classic. It's the most common trope in female-oriented novels, the true heiress versus the fake heiress, one gentle and resilient, the other bullying others by relying on power. Looking at the back-and-forth dialogue from just now, the plot had reached the point where the true heiress had left the Zhu family and was working here, and today she just happened to run into the fake heiress. It really was a case of enemies crossing paths on a narrow road. He really hadn't expected her to be Zhao Fan's heroine. Was this the result of mixing male-oriented and female-oriented genres? This fate left Qin Yi feeling slightly surprised. At this moment, the people around them were whispering, I never expected to stumble upon such a wealthy family scandal. To think that the dignified second miss of the Zhu family would have such a face in private. A fake is just a fake. Look at the true heiress, that's what you call gentle and proper. Pa, and she looks down on ordinary people. She's just a fraud. How noble can she really be? Sister Zuyao has it really tough. Someone who stole another person's identity like that should be locked away for life. Second Miss Zhu listened to the whispers of the other customers and felt the scornful gazes landing on her. She looked straight at Zhu Zuyao in front of her, the anger and resentment in her heart surging to the extreme. Her face turned alternating shades of green and white as she hissed through gritted teeth. So what? You were born with a lowly fate. I'm the one who lived with Mom, Dad, and my brother for over 20 years, and I'm the only one they love. So what if you went back to the Zhu family? They don't have a shred of affection for you. Furthermore, you've lived with those bottom feeders for so many years. You're reeking of bad luck. If I were you, I wouldn't have the face to return to the Zhu family. These words were full of sarcasm and disdain, filled with insults and trampling on Zhu Zuyao's past life. Yet, Zhu Zuyao's expression remained faint, her gaze calm, and she was not provoked in the slightest by her vicious words. People have never been divided into high or low status. By your logic, if we're talking about origins, you're the low-born mongrel. You stole my life and enjoyed the wealth and splendor that should have belonged to me for over 20 years. It would be one thing if you didn't know how to be grateful, but you keep coming to provoke me again and again. Besides, not everyone is as arrogant and domineering as you. looking down on others like a complete rogue. It's truly rare to see a bitch as arrogant and domineering as you. Zhou Zuyao's tone was peaceful, yet every word struck at second Miss Zhou's vital point. Back then, she had used her excellent grades to get into the nation's top Heishi university. On campus, she had seen many wealthy, influential students and second-generation heirs. Even if some looked down on ordinary people in their hearts, they would at least maintain a veneer of decency and politeness. No one had ever been like second Miss Zhou, completely lacking in upbringing, throwing a tantrum in public, and acting as unreasonable and barbaric as a street shrew. These words pierced deeply into second Miss Zhou's heart. Coupled with the increasingly loud discussions around her, she completely lost her composure on the spot. Clutching her chest, she no longer had any shred of dignity, letting out a series of flustered, furious screams, acting like a madwoman. How dare you say that to me, Zhu Zuyao, you just wait. Where is the manager? I want your manager to fire you immediately. She roared hysterically, frantically pulling out her phone to find the manager's number and dialing it. She launched into a harsh, angry scolding the moment the call connected. Manager Zio, is this how your store's employees treat customers? Get over here immediately and fire her. After finishing, she hung up the phone directly without waiting for Manager Zio to reply. Manager Zio, on the other end of the line, was also confused, wondering who had offended this plague god again. But helplessly, because of second Miss Zhou's background, he had no choice but to hurry over from his office. Second Miss Zhu was a regular at this store and often came to shop, so she had long since saved the manager's private number. Relying on the power of the Zhu family, she had always been bossy towards the people in the store. The reason she had only met Zhu Zuyao today was because she had only been working there for a short time. 3 minutes later, a middle-aged man wearing a cyan suit, slightly plump, with hair combed to a slick, shiny finish, came jogging into the jewelry store. It was indeed Manager Zio of the jewelry store, and at this moment, beads of sweat were still glistening on his forehead. After seeing second Miss Zhou, Manager Zio hurried over to her. He first placated her with a sycophantic smile, then quickly pulled a nearby shop assistant aside to find out the full story. After hearing it, his face immediately showed his dilemma. He truly hadn't expected that a regular sales associate in his store would actually be the true heiress of the Zhu family. Even more, he hadn't expected the conflict between the true and fake heiresses of the Zhu family to be so sharp, with the fake heiress coming to find trouble only to be taught a lesson by the true heiress. On one side was the spoiled and unreasonable second Miss Zhou, the fake heiress whom the Zhu family had pampered for over 20 years. On the other side was Zhu Zuyao, the true heiress who had returned to the Zhu family not long ago. Although she wasn't favored, she had a genuine blood relationship. Neither side was someone a small store manager like him could easily afford to offend. Seeing Manager Zio standing there hesitating and refusing to take action, second Miss Zhou's anger flared even higher. She put her hands on her hips and threatened sternly. What are you still standing there for? I want you to fire Zhu Zuyao immediately. Did you hear what I said? President Tan from your headquarters is my suitor. If you don't fire her, I'll make one phone call, and not only will she be gone, but you'll have to get out of here right along with her. This statement hit the manager's weak spot. President Tan was his direct superior. If he really offended second Miss Zhu because of this and it implicated him, he feared he would get fired too. It was simply not worth the loss. The manager immediately stopped hesitating. A sycophantic smile plastered onto his face as he nodded repeatedly at second Miss Zhou. Second Miss Zhou, please calm down, calm down. I'll handle it right away, right away. Afterward, he turned around, the sycophancy on his face instantly fading away, replaced by a cold, official expression. He said to Zhu Zuyao in a deep voice, Zhou Zuyao, after verification, you have verbally abused a customer, causing serious dissatisfaction. I am now officially notifying you that you are fired. Please leave immediately. These words and the trumped-up charges fell on Zhu Zuyao's ears without causing the slightest ripple. She had long known the tricks of second Miss Zhou. She did not argue, but calmly raised her hand to unpin the name tag from her chest and placed it on the counter nearby. Raising her eyes, she didn't even look at the smug-faced second Miss Zhu or the snobbish manager. With her back straight, she turned and began to walk out of the store. And that is it for today's chapter. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an upload. Drop a comment below. I want to know what you think is coming next. See you in the next one.